Sunday Superversive Livestream. I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and I'm here with my co-host, Anthony Marchetta. Anthony, let me set you a little tale here. You're in your old ancestral house, and you start hearing noises, scuffling, running about on the baseboards. There's screeching, an angry woman in a thick regional accent. I don't know if this is like an actual horror story or just my experience among the Italians.
I'm waiting for the horror part.
So the reason why we do these variety shows um, is mostly because we have things we want to talk about, and we just find that guests aren't always amenable to talk about the things that we want to talk
Yeah.
about. Yeah, I know we invited you on to talk about your terrible indie
Your shitty indie book.
story. That's
We don't
your
give a
little
fuck.
pathetic little baby Starship Troopers with wizards. You little shit. Fuck you.
Does this
But
apply to
no.
any of our recent guests? Maybe. It does if you think it does.
This is for you
You know who you are.
specifically. I'm pointing at the
Yeah.
camera that I don't turn on because I'm basically naked. All right.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. It's you specifically and no
I'm
one
thinking of the
else.
song,
You're
You're
alone.
So Vain. You probably think. No. I'm done now. Incredible.
But yeah, but you know, it helps us kind of relax and makes this a little bit more fun for me because, you know, I don't really have the time to read all of our guests or anything like that, which is something we'll talk about later. Because I want to talk about horror movies that have come out recently for a minute. There have been 3 semi-notable horror movies that have come out in theaters. Uh, the first one is Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which is not, as I was led to believe by the name, a mummy film. It was, in fact, a demon possession story.
Oh, really? I thought it was like part of the larger
Yep.
franchise.
Nope. That's why they call it Lee Cronin's The Mummy rather than, you know, any other mummy
I
or
thought it was just because it was the
even
most
something
recent,
reasonable.
the most recent one.
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, Brendan Fraser is supposedly working on another one, which we're pretty happy about. But no, it's about a story of a girl getting kidnapped to hold down a demon in a Egyptian sarcophagus. It's one of those things where like the pagans have figured out how to trap a demon but can't exorcise him, and it's interesting. You know, the ending's pretty nice. Spoiler warning right now, mute if you worried about spoilers. This is the only warning I'll ever give about spoilers for this entire show, by the way. Um, what am I talking about? Oh yeah. Basically, the father does a heroic sacrifice and takes the demon into himself to save his daughter, who has been tormented by this demon for 20 odd years, or like 10 years, or something like that. And then he, you know, they and this Muslim policewoman from Egypt take him and use him to possess the high priestess of the cult, who is a bit of a bitch because she does kidnap girls and cut her own daughter's tongue out for trying to confess, which is very stupid because who is going to carry on the legacy if not your daughter? And if she can't speak, she can't do the magic mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, come
So
on, man. Think
I
it
don't know what
over.
she's I don't know what she was trying to do, but whatever. And so the demon jumps into her. It's a little bit weird, and there's kind of an assumption that the demon, who is an entirely a short-sighted sadist, just wild animal kind of thing, is actually deeply enjoying the irony of uh, jumping into his former caretaker that he allowed them to carry him from somewhere in Arizona, I think, to Egypt again, um, where he had caused accidents before and a whole bunch of other things. So I don't know. It doesn't. The logic doesn't really follow through, but it does have some good scares, some good horror bits. It's a solid, 5 or 6 out of 10, maybe a 6. Uh, so here's what I wanted to talk about in this little vignette. Anthony, can you tell me what the difference is between a mummy story, a demon story, and a ghost slash revenant story?
This feels like a trick question.
It's not. I mean, so there is an element where all three are connected,
That's not what I mean. I
but
mean, the
there is
difference is one is about a mummy that comes to life, one is about a disembodied spirit, and one is about a demon possessing people. I don't like. What am I missing?
okay. So the theme that connects all three of those genres is the idea of something coming to life, and magic and spirits and this element of spiritual horror. Uh, the mummy is technically usually some sort of zombie that has been brought back to life, usually through Egyptian necromancy or disturbing his tomb or whatever, compared to something like a revenant coming back to life, which is usually generic magic slash curses slash, the ghost possessing the body for revenge. Versus the demonic possession, which is a spirit coming upon, usually a living body, to torment the living, but usually without a plan or with a very specific plan, ironically. Uh, but the mummy has its own feel. It's more than just the Egyptology, the grandioseness of Egypt. Usually, mummies have unfinished business in, how do I want to put it, like in eternal ways. Like they don't have unfinished business 5 minutes ago or from specifically some point in their life. Usually, there's either an element of ambition or love or something higher than, shall we say, personal revenge. Like a lot of ghost stories are just revenge stories with a ghost. Hokum is kind of one of those, but not really. That's the next one we're going to talk about. But a mummy movie is not a demonic possession movie because the mummy is itself the usually antagonistic force against, whatever unfortunates happen to be around. It's usually way more powerful than the average ghost, able to affect the area around it, i.e., 12 Plagues of Egypt, and may have very human underpinnings to it, i.e., it still loves its lover from back then and wants to resurrect it, or have the reincarnation. It views its unlife as an expansion of the of its time on Earth as a mortal. Whereas a ghost is about the unfinished business of the last moments of its life or the grand thrust of its life, i.e., the person who betrayed me, rather than some sort of deeper, more melancholic, aristocratic attitude. Whereas a demon is just there to make people suffer. There usually isn't a bit grand plan besides, these people are going to suffer. They're not Christian. They can't exercise me. I can do what I want to them. That sort of deal. So there's a definite feel. So the Lee Cronin's The Mummy is not a mummy movie. It is specifically a demon possession story with Egyptian themes to it.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, as far as the mummy movie,
Are you there?
my microphone came out temporarily. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Yeah,
Yes.
as far as the mummy movies go, I've only ever seen, I guess, three technically, because I saw the Scorpion King like when I was really, really young, um, once, and I recall it being okay. But I've only seen three. I saw the 1999 Mummy, which I'm always tempted to call the original when it is very much not. Uh, I saw the real original Mummy not that long ago, like a couple years ago. Uh, and I saw, of course, the Yeah, Brendan Fraser, Scorpion. So those are the only Mummy movies I've seen. I'm not like a mega fan of the franchise, which I know is actually quite a long running and quite a storied franchise with a lot of good films in there. Uh, I would say the
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser version isn't even a horror movie at all. It is something more akin to Indiana Jones
No.
action adventure flick. Uh, in fact, that's
Mhm.
exactly what it is. I think it was Isaac Young who said that in reality, the successor to Indiana Jones was Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, and I agree with this. Uh, he's
I
absolutely
do too.
right.
I think it's a little different, but I do
It's
agree with
definitely
you.
a
Like
little
if you were
different,
to
but
point
it's
a
a
gun
little
at my head,
different
but
in a
yeah.
way that it had to be to continue. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's certainly the continuation of that sort of premise. Like, there's a little bit more of a horror element to it
Mhm.
than Indiana Jones ever had. Granted, Indiana Jones Raiders does have that one scene at the end. Uh, but even then, it's only that one scene. Uh,
Mhm.
the whereas the Mummy, the whole premise is kind of horror coded in the background, uh, in a little bit of a
Right.
different way. Uh, the original 1930s Mummy, I watched it with my family. My family clowned on it. I'm like, I think it's pretty good, and they were like, No, this is 1930s schlock, and I'm like, I don't know, I liked it.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's not bad.
it was good. I thought it was good. To be honest, though, my family sometimes I think doesn't really appreciate media from like those very early eras. Like I tried to show them, original Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. I was telling them, yo, like Boris Karloff's performance as the monster in this is actually fantastic. And they were like making fun of me for saying that. And I'm like, nope, I'll stand by it. Uh, I'm like, he's putting on this is actually genuinely impressive acting. He's putting on an emotive performance with very little dialogue, using only facial expressions and ridiculous makeup. This is like uh, a brilliant acting performance.
Mm.
But yeah, the Mummy is kind of, I don't know. If I had to criticize it, weirdly, it wouldn't be the way that most people would. I actually thought it was kind of slow, but and that was my main criticism of it. But in terms of like being a horror movie, it's like, yeah, I could see why people would want to remake this to be like, oh, this could be modernized in really interesting ways. And to be fair, they
Mm.
did manage it once uh, in that 1999 movie. But
Yeah.
again, that 1999 movie is only technically The Mummy as far as I'm concerned. So, make of that what you will.
I mean, I wouldn't call it technically a mummy movie. It's very much a mummy movie. Like it's like the one of the benefits of mummy movies as opposed to like say ghost stories is that element of adventure that I didn't mention earlier. But I did mention it. You should believe
Yes.
me.
Well, I don't see that's
Yes,
the thing though.
be
The
gaslit.
element of adventure is barely in the original 1930s movie. The original Mummy movie.
It's
What
inherent.
was that?
It's inherent to it.
It's kind of in the background, I guess. I suppose
Mm.
a nice way of putting it, I suppose, that would kind of connect the two franchises is that in one is a horror movie with adventure elements in the background, and the other is an adventure movie with horror elements in the background. Uh,
Sure.
and I could get behind that for sure. Um, it's also like it's one of those movies that I think that's really stood the test of time. It's a really fucking good movie. Uh,
Mm.
like and has only gotten better as the years have gone on. I mean, part of it has been a little what like Critical Drinker and his crew have talked about a bit, which is like we look back on like early 2000s, late 90s and whatever, and we'll be like, holy shit, we didn't know how good we had it, right? Like
Oh yeah.
Troy is the example right now. For all of the people kind of like, no, you don't understand. Troy used to be hated. Like, yeah, you're right, and I remember this myself, right? Like,
Hmm.
they're not wrong. I do have a memory of Troy not. I wouldn't say hated. I think that's exaggerated, but being kind of being underwhelmed. Like people were underwhelmed by it, right?
Yes.
But the problem is, if Troy came out now, it would be one of the best movies of the year, easily,
Yes. Yes.
easily. I suspect, like right now on Rotten Tomatoes, for example, it's in like the 60s. I think it would be in the 90s if it came out today,
Yes.
because that is just how far films have fallen. Certainly, it would be in the 90s user ratings. Troy is interesting, like with all of the Odyssey discourse going on. Troy is an interesting one to talk about too for a few reasons, because like the things that are wrong with it are different than the things wrong with Nolan's The Odyssey, and the things that
Mm-hmm.
are right with it. Like I remember I've talked about it in the past. I'm like, Troy is a fascinating movie because it does have some individual scenes and individual lines in it that are incredibly good, right?
Yes.
And people will bring this up, the fight between Achilles and Hector. Even critics of the movie will, like, you'll even see them go, yeah, it's the only good scene in the movie. Maybe it is, I don't remember, but you know what, it's a really fucking good scene. Like, it may well be the only good scene or by far the best scene or whatever, but it's a great scene. You can't take that away from it, right? Like,
Yeah.
that, and there are just individual lines in the movie. There's the famous one, you know, like, if I wouldn't fight Hector, and Achilles says, and that's why no one will remember your name. Fantastic. 10 of 10. No notes. Right?
Yep.
Like, awesome line. Um, but it's a little dull and drab and washed out, and they took out a lot of the mythic elements, which I think is the thing that really annoyed people. But, you know,
Yes.
like, I think that kind of gets into, like, people are misunderstanding the problem with what's going on with the discourse here, right? Like, and what's happening with Nolan's Odyssey versus a movie like Troy. You know, like, we're smart enough that we're not going to fall into, like, well, you know, the real issue is just Chud's mad, and they're like looking at Troy as an excuse, right? Like, no,
Yeah.
that's obviously not it, right? Like, we're not stupid. You know, I wanted Nolan's Odyssey to be good, frankly. Like, I take no joy in the fact that it looks like dog shit. Um,
Yeah.
I am a Nolan fan. Like, I am not a mega fan in the way of something. I haven't seen all of his movies, but if you were to ask me, like, yeah, I like the Nolan style.
I would think he would make a fantastic mummy movie.
He might. Yeah, I think he probably would.
Like
Um,
he'd put a lot of weight to it. He'd have the music just right, the
I think
costumes.
Eggers would kill it.
Mm, I think so too.
Yeah,
I
Eggers would kill it.
actually, yeah, like yeah, I think so. I want to wait to talk about deeply Nolan's movie until it comes out. Uh, partially
Sure, I'm not going to
because
go deep. I promise. I do have a point
mm,
I was getting at, though.
go for it.
Um, the point I was trying to make is, like, the issue with the discourse is not like, you know, Chud's mad. It's not when you say, like, you can really compare. This is a good example to me. Like, compare Epic the Musical to the Odyssey, and you go, why weren't people mad about Epic the Musical? And you go, well, there's a couple reasons. One is that as a musical, it got popular with, like, the Tumblr crowd first, and this is not really Jorge's fault or the musical's fault. That's simply the crowd that will tend to gravitate towards musicals before anything else, right? Um, so fair enough. So you're being a little bit unfair in, like, the selection bias, right?
Hmm.
Um, but even more than that, like, I don't have a problem with Epic the Musical. You don't have a problem with Epic the Musical. Well,
No.
why? Well, for one thing, there's a very, very, very important difference in the way it's being framed. In fact, I would argue this is one of the best things Jorge did. He didn't call it the Odyssey, right? It is not
Right.
the Odyssey. It is Epic the Musical based on the Odyssey, right? I
Right.
did not go into it expecting a one-to-one adaptation of the Odyssey. It is immediately from song one, not framed that way. It starts off with a scene that isn't in the Odyssey, right? And it's a
Hmm.
musical, which is already a very heightened unreality. Nolan's Odyssey, it's like, you know, Christopher Nolan, right? Like, you know what he
Yeah.
does, you know who he is. Nolan is renowned for incredible historical accuracy, for meticulous attention to. I'm seriously though, like, I know we're making fun of this now because of the Odyssey, but think about, like, his reputation. Think of The Prestige. Think of Dunkirk. Think of Oppenheimer, right?
Sure.
Meticulous attention to detail to the point where it could arguably be distracting, right? Um, to incredible fidelity to his artistic vision, right? And then we're looking at this version of the Odyssey and we're going, what the fuck? This isn't like any of that. Why is Lupita Nyong'o playing Helen of Troy? Like, what is this shit? You know, why is a dude playing a man, or why is a chick playing a dude? Sorry, other way around, right?
Right.
Like, which, by the way, I refuse to excuse that. There's some people going, oh, see, she's playing Alpinor, not Achilles. Like, so fucking what? Why is she playing a guy at all? Like, what is she doing in this movie? Why does she get roles, Frank? Right? Like,
I assume, by the way, my actual read on this chick is that she was raped to shit, and she was able to get blackmail.
that's very possible. Yeah.
I'm just
Very,
saying that
very possible.
there are few people as messed up as that one chick, and she was obsessed over when she was a woman, obsessed over. Uh, and the one of the things that happen to women when they become very sexually abused is that they tend to uglify themselves. And then you combine it with the troon culture within Hollywood, you will get somebody who is a perfect storm like this. And then if she was smart enough, which I assume she is, to get the blackmail, have a few recordings here and there. It is almost it is one of those things that explains things about her.
Yeah. Well, you could play this game with basically every public fag and troon. Yeah.
No, well, kind of, but not the same way. Not in the same way I mean it here.
Not as intense, but like what I mean, I no, let me clarify. When I say play this game, I'm not criticizing you. What I mean is going to be true of quite a few of them.
Yes.
This is what I meant by that. But yeah, like, and going back to like what we're saying about like, oh, what makes a good mummy movie, what makes a good, horror movie generally, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh it's weird. Like, there was an adaptation that came out that Critical Drinker praised. Netflix, it's Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah.
And Drinker came out, I was like, wow, this was incredible. So I tried watching it. I put it on like genuine, and I want to be clear here. I didn't know a thing about it. I was genuinely expecting it to be good, right?
Mm.
Like, my expectation going in was Drinker thought it was good. I don't know anything about it, but I generally agree with Drinker's takes, even though I don't think he's perfect, right? Like, he's a trustworthy critic. This is probably going to be good shit. I love Poe. It was
Mm-hmm.
so bad. I genuinely it made me lose respect for the Critical Drinker as a critic. Like, it makes me now, like, I don't trust his takes anymore. I don't trust that he is correct. Now,
Right.
I now will trust him if it's something that was obviously going to be bad and it is bad. And I go, well, yeah, okay, sure. Mango and Grok isn't good, right? Like, we all know this.
Sure.
Like, you knew it wasn't good. I knew it wasn't good, right? Like, who are we
Yeah.
kidding here? But whenever he goes like, wow, I'm surprised this movie was actually good, I no longer trust him, right?
That's
Like,
reasonable.
I just don't believe it, because that made me call into question that if he even knew what, like, it made me call his taste into question. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Mm.
I made it through one episode and turned it off in absolute disgust. It was not scary. It was not entertaining. It was woke as fuck. Um, they gayed up like every character. They blacked every character. Like, completely ridiculous.
Well, it was called Fall of the House of Usher. Come on, man.
I don't even get what's the joke.
There's a rapper called Usher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Fair. Uh, but yeah, like, so all of this is to say, it's hard for me to know, like, horror movies have kind of done better than other films. And the reason is but it's also a little misleading. And the reason it's a little misleading is the same way that, like, anime is misleading. You'll see, we'll go, there's still good anime coming out every year, and they're absolutely right. But this comes from a lack of knowledge about the anime industry versus the Western industry. The reason that there is good anime coming out every year is that there is an absolutely insane amount of anime that comes out every year, right? Like,
Yep.
the pipeline is absurd. It's like hundreds of shows per season, way, way more than comes out in Western animation. And the truth is, if you go like, oh, but there are like 5 good shows this season, 5 out of 100 is 5%.
Yep.
Right? Like, it's actually not great in the anime industry right now, as anybody who really knows anything about it will tell you, right?
Yeah.
I think horror is kind of in the same boat, where it's like, oh, horror is doing better. There are generally a few good horror movies per year. Well, yeah, that's because horror movies can be made really cheaply on a budget. So there are dozens of horror movies per year. Eventually, one of them is going to hit by mistake.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in the current like horror semi renaissance that we're in. Um, I think this is my problem too with kind of the drinker. I think he's going to end the year and go 2026 was a lot better than last year. And I'm going to be like, while this technically might be true, I don't think it's showing any sort of trend in the right direction, right?
No.
Like, I think that if it is better, it's better just by sheer chance. I don't think that anybody's learned any lessons, right?
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
it's like with like yeah, sure. I've watched more movies this year than I did in 2025 or even 2024. But also, I made a deliberate effort to go out on the cheap day, the $6 day, uh, where they won't get any money out of me really, uh, to go and watch movies so I can comment on horror films. Uh, the quality of the horror films are actually quite low. Uh, Obsession was good, but we'll talk about that later.
right. Like, when you look at I mean, part of it first off is that 2025 is quite probably the worst year in the history of film since like the 1930s or so.
Yeah,
um Maybe earlier, right? Like it
yeah.
was a truly legendarily bad year of films, especially in Hollywood. At least Japan gave us did it? No, it didn't give us Godzilla minus one, not in 2025. So never mind, just gave us nothing. It gave us really nothing. Uh, but like this year, what do we got? Well, we got Project Hail Mary, right? That's a
Hmm.
pretty good movie. Um, but that's the thing. Like the fact that it got like a 99, I suspect that back in the 90s or even early 2000s, it would have probably gotten in like the 70s. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a fine movie. I liked it, right? Absolutely a good movie. Recommended. Would watch again, right?
yeah.
Is it as good as The Martian? I mean, like people are saying it's better, but I really don't think it is. Uh, like really not at all.
There's a lot of weirdness around Project Hail Mary, because it was like his second work. People had a lot of work from The Martian. If you, I don't know if you recall, but there was a lot of much to do about the female lead for that movie.
So yeah, The Martian was weird because I read the book and quite liked the book. I even wrote a review of it. Like it's a very good book, the original Martian, not Project Hail Mary. I didn't read, but um, I quite like the book, right?
Mm.
And also, by the way, I have absolutely nothing against Andy Weir. Seems like a cool dude. Seems like a very nice guy. But uh like there was this weird thing at the end of the movie where in the book when Watney is rescued, they do their little cowboy rescue sequence. Well, they add a bit in this where he has to poke a hole in the spacesuit to propel himself forward. And
Hmm.
then the captain goes out onto the deck of the ship and catches him, and it looks weirdly romantic. And this is very stupid for a variety of reasons. Why is the captain the one going out? She's the one who
Hmm.
runs everything. Why is she trying to catch a fully grown man who is traveling hundreds of miles per hour? It's Jessica Chastain. She'll get blown over with a gust of wind. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um
she has
like
at least twice her mass.
yes,
At least.
it doesn't make a lick of sense that she would be the one to go out. Like she would send someone else out. And there's like two ways. On one hand, you go, okay, well, I can see why they made this decision. They want the captain, who is like the character who has been shown to be the one taking the most responsibility, to be the one to rescue him. But then there's the other side where you go, but isn't it feminist? Like, I bet it is.
So feminist.
Right? Like, I want to believe it's not, but I don't believe that. I believe it is. I don't trust it. Um, right? And it's not in the book either. And he wrote this is actually Project Hail Mary is Weir's third book because everybody hated his second book. Uh,
Wait, which one
and
was
Weir
his
himself
second
is,
book?
what was that?
I thought Hail Mary was his second book.
No, it was his third. He wrote a second book called Artemis. And
Oh, that's
Weir's
right.
even spoken about it. He said, the problem with Artemis is I made the lead too unlikable.
Yeah.
And he's right. Artemis was about like a girl who was like a smuggler on a station on the moon or something.
You know what's funny? I completely forgot it exists and equated it with Project Hail Mary.
That's fair. But yeah, she was like, and she was unlikable. And this is one of the reasons I like Weir is that most writers would be like, or in the modern context, would be like, you chuds didn't understand my character. And Weir is like, yeah, lesson learned. I made her too unlikable. People didn't buy it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I can respect that, right? Like, I genuinely can. But Weir also said some stupid shit, right? Like,
Yeah.
and what I mean, he had that interview with the Critical Drinker. And in the interview, he said things, and I know you're supposed to be like, oh, yeah, Weir is totally right. But he wasn't right, was he? When he was like, oh, I don't think there should be any politics at all in my work, right? Like, if you're reading a political message, you're wrong. And I'm like, but that's just not true, is it, Andy? Like, that's not true of anyone. That's not true of you. That's not true. Like, not only, and the problem is the reason it's not true is that once again, he is like center left, right?
Yes.
But he's normie left, you know. So you'll have a line in Project Hail Mary, and somebody pointed this out. I forget who it was, like, some Twitter. I think it might have been Silence and Star Song, actually. The magazine. They point this out. And they go like, but Andy, he's like, look at this line that's right in there. And it's someone going like, oh, my dad said global, you know how like the earth is warming right now? And then the kid goes, my dad says global warming is just a myth. And he's like, yeah, well, your dad's wrong. He's a conspiracy theorist or something. There's literally like, it has nothing to do with the book and could be taken out, losing nothing from the scene. And I know this because they took it out from the movie, right?
Right.
Like, it's not in the movie at all. So Andy includes this, and then he goes, yeah, there's no political message in my works. Why would he say that, but also include this? Well, because to someone like Andy Weir, who is center left, what he's saying is normal and uncontroversial. And in fact, only idiots, the sorts of people who wouldn't even read his books, because they probably don't read, right?
Right.
Would
I'm not
ever.
reading right now.
Yeah. Like, seriously, though. Like, if you're Andy Weir, this is probably what you're thinking. Oh, if you think that if you don't believe in global warming, you're probably not going to read my books anyway, because you're probably not somebody who reads, right? You're probably not smart enough. So this isn't a political message. It's just what everybody who thinks, right?
All the right people believe this.
Yeah, exactly. All the right people believe it. And it's so uncontroversial. I don't even consider it like background noise, right?
Yeah.
And there's another thing too, where like somebody else pointed this out. He's on the ship and he loses his memory. He has total amnesia for a while, and he wonders if he's like, I don't have any girlfriend or boyfriend. Like, there's no girl in my photos or anything, right? Am I gay? And he considers this very like, and he's not, by the way, but
right.
He considers this very mechanically. Like, I could tell you right now, even if I lost my memory, it is simply not a thing that would ever appear in my mind as like, I wouldn't think that way, right?
No.
Like, it would just not occur to me to think, am I gay? The sort of person who would think that is someone who has bought into modern gender theory, right? Like, and Andy Weir is the sort of guy who just assumes it, right? Like, he just assumes modern gender theory. It's not a thing that needs to be discussed. It's not a political point to him. Everybody thinks that. At least anybody intelligent, anybody who's smart enough to be reading my books, right?
Yeah. You see, it's like one of those things where it's like, what is it? It's like he looks at the Christopher Nolan movie and it's like, of course, who else could play Achilles? And he looks over to whoever's like about to cancel him. Looks back. Yeah, can't be anybody else. Achilles could be played by a woman. It's like one of those things where it's like it sounds like there's some sort of principle behind it, but really there is no principle. There is nothing. It's a void, not not something that can how do I want to put it? Like, be pinned down. Like, if the power structure switches, he would somehow chameleon-like turn into somebody who has always believed something similar to you and I, but in reality, he would switch back the second he could. I don't like it's one of those things where like I don't actually think about what motivates the enemy. I just know that they're the enemy, and I know that they are motivated fundamentally by power. Like it's not something that you can go like, oh, they're so high-minded. Well, if they were high-minded, they'd actually have a nuanced opinion, not whatever the majority is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. Like even The Martian, which I very much liked. I've always said that it was a book where I'm trying to think of how to put it. It had a lot of like the correct woke opinions,
Mm-hmm.
but for the particular type of story that he was telling, I actually think thematically it worked really well. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of The Martian was that all of humanity is going to come together to save this one guy, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who you are. You're like when you see a person in trouble, you're going to work together to try and rescue him. And you know what? Like that it happens to lead to a lot of like the woke positions just kind of being there in the background, right?
The blue
Oh,
button.
everybody, what was that?
The blue button.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and I don't have a problem with it. I didn't have a problem with this because I'm like, you know what? Like, he definitely was not shoving it in my face. It was just kind of a background thematic element. It's also kind of a wholesome one. Like, I don't mind it. I'm okay with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
For The Martian. Yeah. Um, I was not surprised that Artemis was more woke. I was surprised that Project Hail Mary wasn't. I actually avoided reading Project Hail Mary because I heard about the climate change shit. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so the earth is dying because of climate change, Cass. Now, as it turns out, I was a little bit wrong about that. Like, earth is dying because of climate change, but it's like artificially caused climate change, right?
Right.
It's not really the woke thing. That's only a very small, line dropped in the background in an early scene that otherwise has nothing to do with the story. Uh, so that's why I was willing to like. I heard this, and I'm like, oh, the movie's actually really good. And people were clowning on like the Quirk Chungus dialogue. The movie actually gets rid of a lot of it. Um, Me and Kursova actually had a back and forth about this, and then there was just one dude who got incredibly pissed at me for no reason. He was so there was this one guy Gamma who was responding to me on that pose. I remember he just got so angry that I was like, no, I still think Andy Weir's a good writer. And he was like pissed about it. And I would be like, look, I'm gonna level with you. Like, if you would not publish Andy Weir, you are making a mistake, right? Like objectively, for yourself, for your audience, he is probably the most popular sci-fi author since what, the pulp era?
Yeah.
To actually come to think of it, that's probably correct, right?
He might be. He is the most popular sci-fi writer since the height of Star Wars.
Yeah, I would have to say so, right?
Like since like he's probably the tops since like the 90s.
I think
The
even the 90s is a little late because it's like
mm,
what Asimov was too niche, to be frank. He didn't have the
what are you
sort of mainstream appeal that Weir has.
what?
I'll stick with that. Think about how long it took for Asimov to get a movie adapted out of his works, like decades after his death. Andy Weir got two in his lifetime while still writing.
We'll talk about this some other time.
Ooh, bum bum.
Bum bum. One, I don't know enough about it,
Keep in
and
mind,
two,
I'm an Asimov fan, by the
yeah.
way. I actually don't even dislike Asimov. I'm just going off popularity. Yeah.
Well, the thing is
Uh,
that we're very far afield off of what we want to talk about, and I want to give you like a full hour to talk about Crime and Punishment.
yeah, that's true. And just the general project.
We need to talk about sci-fi and movies another time, partially because the only movies of sci-fi that are any good have been the Andy Weir films recently. Um, and the reason why I only really go to horror films is because that's the best chance of it being something we're seeing. And even then, let's talk about Hokum for a second. The next movie I saw,
Yeah,
Lee,
go ahead.
Lee Cronin's The Mummy, was okay. It was a demon possession film, which I wasn't really prepared for. They're a little bit wanky about like their establishing shots, but fundamentally, it's okay. Um, like I think that if you have a demonic possession story and you have ways to exercise slash trap it, a Christian should be able to do it just as well as any Egyptian priest. But hey, they're atheists. What do I know? Um, More than them. The second bit is um, the hokum is not that great. It has some elements that could have been a lot better, but it doesn't work out for multiple reasons. The main character is incredibly unpleasant, and he's not the best acted. Uh, Hokum is randomly inserted into the movie in a way that's fairly natural, but it's a too antiquated. I'm sure, I'm sure you know this means war. Um, it's too antiquated a word. Uh, I'm saying it like liquidated. Why can't I say antiquate? I'm not going to worry about it. It's too ancient a word to really be used in the common parlance and be understood. Sure, a writer would do it, and it's got a great moment, where he like almost kills himself and stuff like that, and other things like that. He actually tries for it, and I was pretty happy about it because he is such an asshole. The witch may or may not be real, which is a trope I hate, but she certainly disappeared the dude who murdered the one nice person in the mysterious motel. Um, like it's one of those things where like they try to have. I'm trying to scoot through this too fast. I need to just relax a bit. They try to have it where the characters are grounded in reality, and then there's a mystery of whether it's a mystery or not. Somebody's certainly murdering people, and it's probably the dude who's the obvious murderer from the half of the film when things get real. They talk about mushroom alcohol, and then the dude starts drinking alcohol, and every time he drinks the alcohol, something uh, uh, mysterious happens to him. Like it's one of those things where like it's a little too obvious. It's put together cleverly, and at the end of it, he has his hope for life back, which for the book he's writing in story. Um, the conquistador will no longer kill his boy Jabari, and instead, they will work together to find the treasure. It's bad. It's not good. Hokum is a solid miss. There are some decent scares, but it doesn't. If it was just a locked room where he's trying to deal with the death of his mother, which he accidentally caused, it would be better. If it was actually a supernatural happenstance, it would be better. If it was actually not a supernatural happenstance whatsoever, it would be better. Like it's one of those things where it tried to be too much and it tried to be high minded and falutin, but it doesn't quite work out. Then you have, so it's like it's kind of a miss. It's kind of got some scares. The trailers are better than the movie. Um, you know, they should have chosen a lane and stuck to it. So that's all I'll say about it. It's like a 4 out of 10. And again, the main character is an asshole, but he's not acted well enough, and he doesn't really have any redeeming qualities except he's sad about his mother, who he accidentally murdered playing with the family suicide gun, which I wish I was joking. He was playing with the family suicide gun, watching a public access children's show, and accidentally shot and killed her. Um, it's
Yeah, that'll happen when you're playing with the suicide gun.
Like it's one of those things where it's funny to talk about it than it was to actually watch it, because they kind of overacted it. Um,
Oh man, that reminds me that one day I truly want to have. We're not going to do it now, I promise you. You just made me think of this. One day I want to have a stream where we just discuss the Sherlock finale for the whole stream.
yeah, I'll have to actually watch it.
It's very, very entertaining. You will thoroughly enjoy
I
yourself.
might. I might. So the last movie I saw, which was good, like a 7 or 8 out of 10, was Obsession. Obsession had some great actors in it, including an actor who was gay, and you can tell because he is all over the place about these bitches. Um, he's weirdly too good of an interactor with his male friend than he is with any of the women. But no, the premise of the movie is very simple. There is an item within the movie called a one wish willow. If you break it, you get a wish. You only get one wish. Whatever it is, you'll get it. Now, of course, we and our audience, who are, of course, well read, educated people, know how many traps I just described there. You know what will happen if you wish in the way that this is described. But in reality, it happens exactly like you think it is. There is even like set in the modern world where it's like you look up reviews. It works for some, it doesn't work for others, and for those it works for, that it's believing bad reviews because what they wanted was terrible. So of course, our main character wishes in the worst way possible for the object of his lust to love him more than anyone else in the world. Um, I know.
Dumbass.
Now, let's say that you have an attractive woman that you fancy. Let's be real. You don't want to wish to affect her at all. Uh, you can have many, many different versions of this wish that are simply better choices. I wish to have a body that would make XYZ more attractive. Like that's a bad one also because it will like literally morph your body. But you could say something like, "I wish I had the motivation to go to the gym and make myself so much of a better person," or even, "I wish I had the perfect metabolism to maintain a supermodel form." Which is also kind of bad, but it's better than some of the other ones you could wish for. Having the wish, "I wish she loved me more than anyone else in the world," is terrible. You can wish for things like, "I wish I knew what to say to women to get them to fall in love with me, or sleep with me." One of those two things. You're already sinning. You might as well go for the gamut. Remember, if you're sinning but you're having less fun than Jeffrey Epstein, you're doing it wrong. Which is my hot take, by the way, about sin. You know how many pictures he's just smiling and having a great time with Bill Clinton in a hot tub? Like, let's be real. Let's be real. If you're in misery, you gotta work on this. You either have to repent, which is what you should do, or you need to up your game in evil. You need to have an evil doctorate rather than just a master's degree. Uh, um, you could say, what's another good wish? I wish that um, I don't even know. That's because the only wish I would ever actually make in this is that I wish that I would win the lottery whenever I play it. You only got to win one. Uh,
Yeah,
yep.
right.
You buy exactly one ticket. It has the number on it. You win the 100 mil. Guess what? Don't be greedy. That's it. You're gonna have enough trouble because you won the lottery, which ruins more lives than it saves. Because anything you wish for will hurt you because it's not something that you have earned yourself. Rather, it is a magic bullet that will cause damage going in and damage going out. So, of course, he wishes that she would love him more than anyone else in the world. And it works like demonic possession, literally, because she doesn't love him. Some of the cast interviews are like, well, if he worked on himself a bit, if he was honest with her, because this guy is a total coward, which is actually kind of refreshing as a character flaw, because they actually play it right, which is why it's good. All the characters play it right. Um, she could have fallen in love with him. Okay. But that's not what happened. What happened was he used his One Wish Willow to make her obsessed with him. And because it can't actually change who she is instead possessed by a demon that is obsessed with him. There are great scenes where the demon clearly doesn't know how to act. And so does like weird little T-Rex movements or just stands in one place to the ruination of the body, or starts screaming for no reason. It's very clearly it received a guidebook on how to act, but didn't actually know how to act. That sort of thing. It's definitely um, it's definitely a bunch of interesting stuff. A lot Eldritch fan, a lot where we talked about. Oh my goodness, we talked about science fiction. We talked about Lee Crumbs the Money, and we talked about Hokum, and now we're talking about Obsession. Uh, so, uh, when you make a wish, there's all kinds of dangers. The genie wish is always ironic. You don't get what you want. But the thing is, in story, people who have wished correctly got their wish as described. There is a dude. There is a
Wow.
dude who runs the store that sells One Wish Willows, and he's like the dude's like, look, I made a bad wish. Can you wish to break it? He's like, no, dude, I already got my wish, and it's implied that he got a successful, which is a true miracle, by the way. He had a successful New Age store, and that was probably his wish. Um, another dude, Jim or Ian rather, excuse me, wishes for $1 billion, and it just falls from the sky. He is then murdered, which I guess was the ironic point, uh, but he was kind of stupid anyway. Um, so there's a solid undercurrent, and even talking to the help desk support for the wish, which is what I would do first if I saw that there was a wishing thing that it seems to have power and has a magical support hotline. I would call that number first to determine the rules or if it's pure irony or not. Is that the dude is like, yeah, you just get what you wish for, straight up, like it actually works. And it will move heaven and earth to and hell more likely to make sure it works. Um, over the course of it, the horror ramps up, where you get the obsession from the girlfriend he wanted, but also you get um, the original personality breaking through and trying to actively kill itself whenever possible. So there are scenes where she will just start screaming um, because she's able to take control for half a second. Or there's a kiss, and then she immediately dives for the nearest broken bottle and starts jamming it into her face until the demon takes over. Which are great scenes, by the way. Um, so it's like the it plays it exactly right. It turns out that the coward is unable to just be chill with the fact that he has the woman he wants obsessed with him, but instead he starts talking to Sammy, who is of course trying to better herself and has all these different things to her. Um, she's the quirky kind of goth chick that he should have gone with, as everyone has in their lives. Um, and she gets murdered the second they get too close, which is actually just an amazing scene. Like the demon upset possessed chick just runs out of nowhere and just starts bashing her head in with a brick by smashing her own head through a car window. Um, there is one scene of nudity, but it is absolutely not titillating. Absolutely not. Because the demon then grabs the body after using the boyfriend, to hide the crime, um, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes, and then like splays it out onto the front room, and then tries to carve her own flesh to look like her more, and like tries to terribly smoke a cigarette, that sort of thing, with the family suicide gun, by the way. The actually, I don't know if it's a family suicide gun, but it's a gun that was kept in a safe that was involved in everything. It was a Chekhov's gun, in fact, literally a Chekhov's gun. Somebody tap a bingo card. Um, and basically, it all goes to hell. This coward, this main character of a coward, tries to kill himself with the gun, can't do it, decides to take sleeping pills like his cat in the first part of the movie, which is later on served to him for reasons unknown. I'm not even sure what the logic was for it. Maybe because he loved the cat, he wanted to eat it. I don't know. The demon's kind of weird like that, kind of kinky. Um, and he downs the pills. Then he tries to throw up the pills, but he had bought an extra one wish willow to try and break the curse over him. And the demon finds it and snaps it. Of course, the demon, loves him more than anything else in the world, wished for him to love her back. So, in the middle of trying to retch up the sleeping pills, he is possessed by his own demon and forgets all about it, I guess. It's a little bit weird. And rushes to her in the room where there are multiple corpses, one of which naked, and they start making out. And then he collapses from the sleeping pills and dies. She almost kills herself, but at the last second, because he died, he is dead. The corpse is now cooling. The demon leaves her, so she is stuck with a gun in one hand, her not lover in another, with her actual lover dead on the floor, with her best friend naked, head bashed in like a pinata, splayed out not 3 feet away. It's just, the TV is playing pornography involving the boyfriend. Doesn't show anything, but it's obvious what it is. There is a shrine to their love, on the left hand. It is a wild, and then the credits are basically her just freaking out for the next, 5 minutes or so. It's a great ending. Like it was one of those movies that kept me riveted the entire time, both from the wrongness of the actions and the characters, and the sort of fantasy of it being played completely straight. The character flaws are right. The characterization is right. I won't say it goes into just like into something truly high, right? It doesn't hit like the heights it needs to. The comedy is funny. The characters are great. Um, the India Navar is an actress to watch. Absolute 10 out of 10 performance. Um, there are moments where she could have held back, but she just didn't. It was pretty good. It was worth watching. Um, as long as you're okay with all the stuff I described earlier. I don't think I mentioned anything. Um, I think I mentioned everything that would be distasteful from a morals perspective, depending on your level. But no, it's like a solid 7, 8 out of 10. I might even watch it again, not in theaters, but just if it were available to me, I might watch it. Um, it's like one of those things where wish stories are actually very hard to write because there is to a thing such as being too much of a jerk ass genie, as the phrase goes. You can push a wish too far so that it's like, why even bother? These things are being sold in stores. Why in the world would you wish on a one wish willow if it was guaranteed to be negative? And so negative that people surely would have heard of this before. The guy who runs the New Age shop, which I guess is an irony of its own thing because he has to deal with people. What's the ironic twist in this? You have to sell one wish willows, and you have to deal with people who wished on the one wish willows poorly. But otherwise, it's a successful business. Yeah, totally successful, completely viable in this economy. You're going to be selling shiny rocks and incense in a conservative small town. And you're going to be, wait, what was that last bit about conservatives? Yeah, it's going to be basically a conservative small town. I don't know. It's small town America, and you're selling new age rocks and incense, and you have to sell one wish willows and deal with the one wish willow guys. Okay, it's still worth it. Like it's one of those things where, like, yeah, it worked out for him. It's implied that it works out for other people too, so it's not like as jerk ass a genie as it could be. Like, it's clear that it's just your wish. Whatever you wanted, whatever you wished for, it's just that. And only that. So whatever you are and whatever you wished for, if you wished for it wrong, that's on you. The guy even kind of said it. It's like, yeah, it's just whatever you wish for, man. You want to speak to her? What? And then she starts screaming from hell. It's not a bad movie. Um, what do you think, Anthony? You ever had a thought about genie stories or anything like that?
I'm a big fan of Monkey's Paw
Yeah, Monkey's
stories.
Paw is better.
There's one Monkey's Paw story that's used in Pinkerton's Ghosts. It was a Violet story, if
I
you
do.
remember. Uh,
Leprechaun.
and yep, yep. My personal favorite Monkey's Paw story is actually, as you can imagine, a John C. Wright story, Fate of
Hmm.
Fortune. I don't know if you remember it
Nope.
or not. So, the conceit of a story is that a lawyer summons a demon who will grant wishes with the belief that because he is a lawyer, he can rules lawyer his way around the demon's contracts,
Right.
right? So he and John does a great job with this premise. It's a very simple story, right? I'm just gonna spoil the whole thing. So just in case people who are listening, it is free on John's website. I recommend you read it, but I am gonna spoil it because I kind of have to. So in the story, he goes like, "All right," he goes, "I have a question." He goes, "Do these wait a minute? These questions don't count as wishes, do they?" Because the demon started going, "You have 5 wishes." He's like, "These questions don't count as wishes, do they?" And the demon goes, "Yes, they do. You have 4 wishes." He's like, "What do you mean they do?" He goes, "You're down to 3." And he's like, "I'm a demon. You think I'm not going?" He's like, "You asked me if it counted. I told you yes." He's like, "All right, 3 wishes. 3 wishes then." And then,
Okay.
like, he goes, "All right, wish number 1." He gives a long things like, "I wish you to abide by my wishes in terms of intention, and to not assume in advance what I mean, to go by what you think I assume, to ask for clarification if needed." And then the demon hears all of this and just goes, "Done." And he's like, "Really? That's it?" He's like, "Yep, done." He's like, "All right, what's your second wish?" And he's like, "Okay, great. I guess it worked." And he's like, "Okay, wish number 2. I wish that I had $1 billion." And he's like, or whatever it was, right? And he's like, "Deal." And he's like, "Wait, that's it?" He's like, "Yep, you got $1 billion." He's like, "Well, then what's the catch? There's got to be a catch." He's like, "Well, it's the catch. It's only the catch you knew you had to had." He's like, "The money's stolen." And he's like, "What do you mean the money's stolen?" He's like, "Where did you think the money was coming from? Obviously, it's stolen." He's like, "Well, like, was it stolen from anyone in particular?" And he's like, "You'll never know." He's like, "Maybe I just stole it from a billionaire. Maybe it came from an old lady. I don't know." And he's like, well, can you just make the money? He's like, well, then it would just be counterfeit, and that's the same problem. So I don't know what you're griping about, you know? And then he's like, so then why did you do it? He's like, you just became a thief. He's like, I don't really, he goes, you don't understand. He's like, I don't give a shit what you do with your wishes, right? I wanted to see you become a thief, and you did, right? So he's like, but okay. He's like, well, I don't care. I'm gonna enjoy myself. And the demon goes, all right. He's like, frankly, I prefer if you deaden your conscience. So go ahead. You know, I'd like to see you do that. It makes it more amusing later. And he's like, I don't understand your motivation. He goes, all right. So he goes, if a rapist tries to lure a little girl to the back of his truck with candy, does the rapist care if the candy tastes good? And then he's like, huh. And then the story ends with him going, all right, I wish I were immortal. And the demon smiles like, oh, that's so easy. He's like, granted, absolutely granted, immediately granted. And he's like, in fact, would you like to test it? And he's like, sure. And then he stabs him. And the guy dies. And he's like, what the hell? I thought you said I was immortal. He's like, you are. In fact, you always were. He's like, he goes, you were never not immortal. He's like, it's my favorite type of wish. I didn't do anything. He's like, but you just killed my body. Eldritch fan says, I don't get it. He didn't tell the demon to steal. John's point is that the demon needs to do one of two things to get that money. He either needs to steal it or counterfeit it. Either way, it's immoral, right? The point is that he just made the guy do something immoral. And in fact, it was something that had to be immoral,
Yep.
right? Like there is no moral way of doing it, you know, because he wants the money instantly, right? In order to instantly get that money, the only thing you could do is steal it or counterfeit it.
Like compared to my granted wish, is that I win every lottery I ever apply to. The irony, of course, is all the stuff applied to winning the lottery, which is bad. Like you will not have a good time winning the lottery in the end. But it is a legitimate way to get the money. It is not stolen. I am not stealing a lottery ticket. I am spending, $2 or however much it is on a Mega Millions and winning it. Of course, there can be a whole bunch of different ways that it could go wrong, but fundamentally, at its level, I am gaining $100 million or whatever through. Of course, I'm paying my taxes. Of course, I'm doing this and that. Doing it legitimately through a known action of how to get the money. The lawyer is like, I just want money. Give it to me right now. Now, the thing is that when you go into the monkey's paw, the wish, the demon, or whatever, your heart is already having a problem. Your heart already desires the easy way out in the worst way possible. And that's it. That's all I got to
Yeah,
say.
like Eldritch Fan goes, he could have told him where gold or oil was. Yeah, but that's the monkey's clause, and he didn't ask where gold or oil was, did he? Uh, if he had asked for that, I'm sure he would have told him. But I'll give you another example, another great one in this story. I forgot one because remember, there were three wishes. Wish number two. And then he says, first off, this dialogue's so good in here. He goes, I won't let you spoil it by making me feel guilty. He goes, no concern have we, mortal, with making you feel and know your guilt. All the better if you never do. And then he says, yeah, he goes, the guilt, he goes, you will never feel a pang of guilt. The guilt is nonetheless quite real. The creature smiled horribly and licked his lips. Yes, my dear, quite real indeed. I don't care. It pleases us that you should not. Proceed. Two wishes now remain. So, Fortune said slowly, I want to be famous. I want to win a Nobel Prize for science. Specifically, I wish to know and understand and publish and get credit for a great scientific achievement. Something like universal field theory. Yeah, that's it. The scientific achievement of the age. And I don't want anything to happen afterwards to eclipse or negate my achievement. I don't want to be suddenly proved wrong by someone else or anything like that. Well, granted. On the computer screen across the room, all ink, paragraph after paragraph of tests clearly written, all in English, clarifying and explaining each equation in detail. The creature spoke. The understanding for which you have asked is a matter of the human will. You must trouble yourself to take the time to learn what is written there. If you publish this and claim the credit as your own, you will receive applause, acclaim, win the Nobel Prize, be awarded all the honors due to a man of genius, a Newton or an Einstein. He backed up. What's the catch? And he goes, oh, do I forget how to read and speak? And he goes, oh, nothing so crass, my dearest professor. The theory is clear and plain and obvious, like all great secrets. And he goes on, well, I'm not stealing this, so what's the catch? And he goes, oh, that you do not deserve it, not at all. And he goes, what do you mean? Each time you accept applause or any congratulation or honorarium, and you fail to tell your worshipful listeners that the ideas are not your own, then you shall be a liar and a plagiarist. He goes, what's wrong with that? I didn't steal the idea. It's not like a real lie. It won't hurt anyone. You failed this time. I've asked for something that doesn't hurt anyone. He goes, oh, my dread master is the most ancient, most glorious, most wise of all created beings. His purpose does not concern itself with whether anyone is hurt. He seeks a vengeance much more terrible than merely hurting someone. Souls can recover from being hurt. And then you get to the final wish, right?
Right.
And so brilliant, get it.
Yeah. No, it's good. I like it.
Aldrich Fan says, I don't get the last witch. He told the demon to assume his intention, so he knew he meant bodily immortality. Once again, no, I disagree. And this is why I disagree. I think if you had and this is probably what the demon would say. So you might say this is what you meant, but we can assume the demon sees intentions. If you had told him, oh, well, even if your body dies, you will survive, are you okay with that? He would have said yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
He goes, in fact, but he goes, you'll only be temporarily without a body. You'll get one back. Right? He goes, you'll only lose your body temporarily. You will get your body back. Right? Like that, I think that he would have absolutely been okay with that. In fact, you will get a newer, better body.
The thing is,
which
yeah,
is absolutely
it's
true.
true. The thing is what you might be missing, Eldritch Fan, is that this is a theologically deep monkey's paw. In the original monkey's paw story, it was basically a not very well educated family wishing on things, including that their dead son would come back to life for the grief. They weren't necessarily a lawyer. They weren't necessarily able to think as deeply as you might expect. It's one of those things where there's interesting stuff to it, but it's not, how should I put it, it's not like these people knew the tropes, right? Like in the One Wish Willow story, they kind of know the tropes. They kind of understand that bad things could happen. He's been warned. It's fair play. With the story there, the demon, who is an actual demon and not, say, a jinn or a genie, or a mechanical device like a monkey's paw or a One Wish Willow. Let's say that the One Wish Willow is true neutral, right? It'll only give you your wish. If you wish for $1 billion, $1 billion will literally fall out of the sky in front of you. Monkey's paw is evil, but not necessarily sentient evil. The demon is sentient evil, and the genie is kind of evil neutral. There's no actual good wish, because somebody who intends your good will not give you a bad wish by definition, or a wish that could destroy you by definition, or a wish that is destroying of others, right? So a good wish is like, say, a fairy godmother. Not like, like she's only going to show up to people who are going to make good wishes. Like, say, I want to go to the ball. I want to go to the ball, etc. Or, I won't be able to. I need to free my boyfriend from the evil witch, etc., etc. Right? That's an example of a good wish giver, and it doesn't even seem like a wish because the wish is good. So you interact with the demon. The demon's goal is not to grant you wishes. The demon's goal is to guarantee you going to hell. However it happens, the demon doesn't care. The Nobody cares in hell. All the underdom of the fiery pits. The goal is to remove as much joy from heaven as possible via the destruction of God's created beings, the humans. They do this because they hate God, and they hate us because God loves us. That's it. That's the whole philosophy of this demon. If he does it through irony or through somebody getting murdered because the $1 billion is from a Russian oligarch who will kill you for stealing from him, or it's, you know, life in prison the second the IRS realizes you haven't put taxes on this $1 billion that they surely noticed the second it got transferred, or, you know, from like a miserable life earning accolades you didn't earn, or from immortality because for some awful reason you decided to test your wish for immortality right in front of the demon who has clearly been screwing you over the entire time of the conversation. um it's one of those things where he deserved it, and he did not have, say, the capacity to repent, nor was heaven, nor should have heaven intervened from a man who is cavorting with a clear demon to, get wishes. Um, I hope that makes it clearer, right? Like it's so it boils down to don't make deals with demons. Giving bodily mortality, sinking depravity, and sin beyond anything a mortal could do. Yes, like it's one of those things where uh, generally demons are considered short-sighted. The demon was probably only thinking, how can I get this fish? Somebody being immortal and evil like this fellow could have brought a lot of people down into the pit with him. But like I mentioned Jeffrey Epstein and sinning earlier, but Jeffrey Epstein was a creature of somebody else. And fundamentally, his job was to be a panderer and a purveyor of goods to these other wicked people who were already going to hell. It is very likely that the demons understood that these people were willing servants at this point in time, in real life. This is real life I am talking about. It is also likely that many innocent children were destroyed and sent to hell through these actions that these wicked men and women were performing on them. So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right that if he had immortality, he could do a lot more evil, but that is not necessarily the end goal in every shot. Um, there has to be a purpose behind things. You have a good comment here. There was a passage in that Hideous Strength where Lewis said the worst thing about the villain's plan to become immortal was that mortality was in some sense a mercy. It limited the amount of sin. That's right. There is an opportunity if you're immortal to repent, but at the same time, the evil done up until then, is great. And quite frankly, a dude who's again cavorting with demons probably isn't going to repent until the bitter end, and who knows what can be done. And probably he would repent of the many bad things that are about to happen to him through his terrible wishes. There we go. That's everything I wanted to say. Obsession is good. I'd recommend it as long as you're not squeamish.
Nice.
Um, it's a great look into what happens when a sensitive young man dates the wrong girl and is unable to courageously deal with his feelings. It really could be any of us. I assume obsession is what happens to between Anthony and his wife all the time, murdering other people and screaming and other things like that. Should never have should never have broken the magical wish pasta to make the spaghetti. Um, the Uh, yeah, it's
It's
all
all
true.
true.
It's all true. I was there. I saw it. Um, so yeah, uh, it's good stuff. There's like with these three different movies, like the witch movie, the mummy movie that's actually demonic possession, and the actual witch demonic possession movie. Like there's pretty good through lines through all of them, but Hokum is the weakest. Lee Cronin is a little bit different. Like it can be done very well with a decent amount of depth. Like there is a movie that has Al Pacino and um, Keanu Reeves, where Al Pacino is the devil and also a lawyer. That's supposed to be pretty good. I haven't seen it though. Um, hmm. Star Wars Red Harvest, the Star Wars zombie
Nope.
book. No, I haven't read it. I'm actually
Yeah,
I
sorry.
read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and then I never read another zombie parody again in my life. Um, the funniest part about Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, there's two good parts. One, Mr. Wickham gets run over by a car, and two, um, yeah,
That
that's
is
pretty
funny.
funny. Screw that guy in particular. He gets away with way too much in the original novel. Devil's Advocate. There we go. And the second bit is that the highest class of British women, get their finishing school in the ninja schools of Japan. But because the Bennets are poorer, they could only go to the kung fu monasteries of China. And it's kind of a family shame. So yeah, there we go. You don't have to read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies anymore. We are done talking about horror, except we're not actually. We are
Bum
going to talk
bum.
now. Well, Anthony is going to take over, and he is going to talk about uh,
Ooh.
um, Crime and
Crime and
Punishment,
Punishment.
which is itself a horror
Yeah.
novel, kind of a
Um,
self a
is it?
self-inflicted horror novel. It is entirely in the gentleman's
Yeah,
bag.
no, I think you can make that case legitimately. I'm gonna treat it quite seriously. So all right. I'm not gonna lie to you people. To the people who were here for Jeff Rowe's interview, it genuinely made a big impression on me. Um, unironically. So Jeff Rowe is still the GOAT, is what we're trying to say. Uh so after Jeff Rowe's incredible rant against indie authors, and how much he hated modern writing, and he basically said, like, they you say don't read anything before 1980. He's like, I'm gonna paraphrase him here, not quote him, but basically, fuck that, right? Like, forget don't read anything before 1980. Read the classics, read the ancient works. The only reason you haven't is because people have convinced you that they're not good, or you are convinced that you're not smart enough, but they are good. There's a reason, right, that they're good. So, um, and it's made me pause for a moment. I want to improve as a writer. I genuinely do. I want to get better. I want to become like a genuinely good writer, right? Um, in order to become a genuinely good writer, it's like, okay, but I've never read like I've only really read in full one full length Dickens novel. Uh, Granted, I actually really liked it. I read A Tale of Two Cities. We were supposed to read Great Expectations in school, and I thought it was so fucking boring. Um, Sorry, I still do. Even though I know people absolutely love Great Expectations, I did not. I like The Tale of Two Cities quite a bit. Um, in terms of, I finally, after many years, I got myself to get through the Iliad and the Odyssey, and it was very much a like I should have done this sooner. Um, right,
Yep.
like, and the Iliad became one of my favorite works of fiction. The Odyssey also excellent. Uh, I've been trying to work my way through the Divine Comedy. The Divine Comedy is quite difficult. You need to read it with a book with like basically an entire separate book of references alongside it. Otherwise, it's impossible to understand. I've been trying to read like read part of like Idols of the King, right, by Tennyson, who's one of the great writers. But I was trying to go through like what are the great works of fiction that I've read, and it was a depressingly low list, right? Small list when I think about it. So we're gonna tier here for a moment. I'm thinking of great books in the Adlerian sense mostly, but even then, I think I'm almost using like a stricter definition than Adler. Um, Eldritch fan asks you, I like the Iliad and the Odyssey a lot. You have preferred translation. Even though he is not accurate at all, I really like supposedly in terms of like strict textual fidelity. I found Stanley Lombardo's translation to be very propulsive and entertaining. I really liked it. Anyway, especially his Iliad translation. His Odyssey translation is also good, but his Iliad translation I thought was very, very good. Uh, but anyway, going back to what I was saying, with that said, I am not a translator, and from what I understand, people tell you that the most accurate of all the translators is Lattimore, and the one that kind of bridges the gap between accuracy and readability is Fagles. Lombardo is a bit of a modernizer, not in the Emily Wilson way, in terms of like, oh, they're military men who are speaking in a military language, and he tries to make everything very propulsive and action oriented. And I liked it, but just know what you're getting into. Okay, going back to what I was saying. So, like, I was going through all of the classic works I've read, and it's a depressingly small list. The Iliad and the Odyssey, of course, I have finished in full. But, like, what else? And then I'm like, not that many. Um, so my list is honestly a little bit stricter than Adler's. I'm thinking of like the great books that I'm thinking of, if you want to call it the S tier, are like the civilizational tentpole books, right? The things that you would go, this will hold up as a work of fiction that's going to define the culture around it, right? And what would you put in that list? Probably the Iliad and the Odyssey, of course, the Aeneid also, um, which I haven't read in full, by the way. But Crime and Punishment, Paradise Lost, uh, The War and Peace, Don Quixote, Epic of Gilgamesh, The Brothers Karamazov, The Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, by the way, anybody tells you it's not on this list, they're an idiot and you can avoid them. They are on this list. Uh, right. Like, let's see. There's just so many. Dickens, you have to pick one of his when you're going through, especially like the greatest novels ever written. You got to you got to put a Dickens on that list, right? I've
Yep.
read it. I did read A Tale of Two Cities, so generally it's considered that his best novel is Bleak House. I am gratified that Chesterton was an admirer of A Christmas Carol, and the reason that Chesterton is remembered at all as a writer is because, that Dickens is remembered at all as a writer is because of Chesterton, right? So the fact that he admires A Christmas Carol makes me pleased, since I also admire A Christmas Carol greatly. A Tale of Two Cities is a great book. I do recommend it. Although his best is considered Bleak House. But yeah, like, it's just there's so many gaps in my fiction, and also like kind of shameful gaps. Like, I haven't read them because I found them boring, or because I've just struggled with them and gave up and haven't enjoyed it. And I'm like,
Or it's like for like, for me, it's a straight up like the wrong people like them too much. Like if somebody I hate likes something, I kind of just don't like it on principle.
I understand that point, but I think you're falling into a right wing trap.
How dare you accuse me of being? Oh
Like,
wait, I am
seriously
right
though,
wing.
too many people on the right fall into this thing where they go, oh well, if our enemies like it, it must be bad, and if they hate it, it must be good,
It
right?
was more about performance. Like when
Yes.
somebody going, "Oh, I love Crime and Punish," in this case, like the Iliad was kind of like that for me as well. Oh, I love this. I still need to read it in total, by the way. Um, I love it so much. It's such a classic. You have to read it. And there's a part of me, the part that makes me contrarian, going, no.
Yeah,
Like
you're
it's
absolutely right. I get your point. Um,
yeah. It's like somebody's like, "Oh, you're not fat." No, ma'am. I am fat. I am gluttonous. I am obese. It is a sign of my sin before God. And it's like, I don't know. I went too hard on that one. But point is that like,
it's
you
like,
know,
Ben, we were talking, sir, this is a Wendy's.
this is a Wendy's. I
Yeah.
know. I'm
It's
so
like,
far
Ben,
from
we're
God, but
discussing
I'll have
why
an
you
extra
don't like
large
classic
fry.
literature. Why are you telling me about how fat you are?
Right, right. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's like if somebody says this, and it feels wrong to me. It's like, no, push it too far. Like, and it's like the same thing that keeps us from like falling into the left wing traps is also the thing that keeps us from genuine human connection. But also social niceties. Like, it's like in reality we would all be better for reading these books, as I'm sure you're about to say. But at the same time,
A little bit.
it's like sometimes it's worth it, right? Well, one person close to me was reading a book about two homosexual boys finding each other as adults. And it's like, I have no idea why you're reading this. This is dumb. I'm not going to read it. But I was very, very, very polite about it. Uh,
Okay, so
but you
here's
know
the
what I
thing.
mean, though.
Yes. Here's the thing. I'm not talking about just any novels. I'm talking about, like, when I'm saying this, I'm talking about things that are not famous for, I don't know, performative, right? Like, it's got to be, when you look into the critical consensus and like that, number one, it's long standing. Oh, by the way, of course, I forgot Shakespeare goes on the list. I have seen Hamlet live and I've seen Macbeth live. Uh, and I've read Othello and I've read Romeo and Juliet. So, yeah. I feel okay with Mike Shakespeare. There's others I should read, but like I'm okay with. I've experienced Shakespeare, and I've seen A Midsummer Night's Dream. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So anyway, going back to what I was saying though, like I'm talking like if somebody were to go like Shakespeare's overrated, like there is a point where you go, you're kind of missing the point where you're discussing overrated or underrated. That conversation has ended, right? Like there is no overrated anymore. There is no underrated anymore. There is just Shakespeare, right? Like you can ignore him at your peril if you would like. Um but eventually you're going to need to acknowledge that he's there, you know? Um Same with the Iliad, same with the Odyssey, same with the Odyssey, same with like Crime and Punishment and War and Peace. And then I go below that, like these civilizational tent poles. I'll have the level that I will sometimes call like you could call it the A tier. I would call it the classics tier, right? Um, these are books that, due to literary quality and general literary quality and influence, or both, could be one, could be the other, could be both, right? Are I think either have stood or I predict will stand the test of time, right? Um, or even should stand the test of time, right? Awaken the Nightland, Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Woe, I would put in this category. A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller, I would put in this category. Uh, I would probably put Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe in this category. Yeah, for sure. Uh, I would put Book of the New Sun in that category. Yes. Uh, I think that there's like The Jungle Book probably goes in this category by Kipling, right? Bunch of things like that. You get what I'm saying. So, okay, Crime and Punishment is in this S tier, right? Like what you would call the civilizational tentpoles tier. Like basically you cannot call yourself fully literate without reading it. And what I'm saying is not so much that anybody would benefit from reading it, but that if I am avoiding reading these books because I either A, find them too difficult, or B, don't find them enjoyable, if I want to be a writer who improves at my writing and becomes a truly great writer, that is no longer a good excuse, right? That's my point.
Yes.
Um, to be like, why didn't you read it? Well, I found it really hard and I got bored. Yeah, like nobody asked, right? Like nobody gives a shit. Um, and then you go, well, isn't it about my enjoyment? Well, no, I thought you just said it was about you improving as a writer and becoming a more literate person, right? Like,
Right.
if that's what you're trying to do, then finish the fucking book, Chud. Um, yeah, force yourself to finish it. And people will also say like it trains you, and it does to an extent. I think this is sometimes exaggerated. One of the big things I saw someone go like, "Oh, the Silmarillion will become easy for you to read after you read like just read Crime and Punishment or Dostoevsky and come back." Well, I've read Dostoevsky and I still find the Silmarillion to be like a fucking dull. So sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. Never have been.
it's all right.
Uh, Lord of the Rings, on the other hand, masterpiece. But yeah, whatever. Not my point. So they say Dostoevsky's actual best novel is the brothers Karamazov, but I really enjoyed Crime and Punishment. And I'm going to be moving on to War and Peace next, which in some ways feels like the final boss of novels. But I'm going to be moving on to that, and I'm going to be reading Moby Dick, which, from what I can tell, probably has, of all of the candidates for the great American novel, the best claim to the title, but we'll see after I read it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like, just in terms of sheer ambition, use of mastery of language, and themes and Americana. I
Themes and
heard John.
such.
What was that?
Themes and such.
Yes, themes and such. So we'll see. This is like a project of mine. I also, of course, will need to finish the Divine Comedy at some point, and I'm forcing myself through the Lamort, though, frankly, that's really not to make myself a better writer and more to make sure that I have read the main Arthurian touch point in the discourse. Uh, like if I'm going to be an Arthurian writer, I would clown on any Arthurian writer who didn't read the Lamort. So, like, if I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
publishing this Arthurian novel, I need to read the Lamort. So or I'm just a hypocrite, right? So and I'm gonna do it. I'm in the middle of it. I'm like slowly working my way through an audiobook version of it, but man, it's hard going. But
It
going
is.
to Crime and Punishment, so one of the reasons that you kind of know that you can trust both like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy is that they are the sort of writers who the literati would not prop up unless they had to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both of them deeply Christian, especially Dostoevsky, but Tolstoy as well. Uh, though he's a bit of a wild card Christian. Not Dostoevsky though. Dostoevsky was, I would call him like a struggler almost, right? Like he was constantly in like spiritual combat almost, right? When you look at his life story, especially, this was a man who fell to like the very depths of absolute failure and despair, right? Uh, who was grappling with God throughout his entire life. And Crime and Punishment very much reflects this. And what makes Crime and Punishment such a brilliant novel is that Dostoevsky has such an incredibly, I don't know, like I don't want to use the word brilliant again because it almost doesn't say enough, right? Like he just has such an unbelievably good grasp of who these characters are, is how I would say it, right? Like he intimately understands the different types of personalities, how they think, and what they are doing thematically, right? And when you get a truly great writer like Dostoevsky, you have these characters who represent different things thematically, but because he is a great writer, they are not representing them thematically in obvious ways, if that makes sense, right? Like they are people first and foremost. And while they are people who are meant to embody certain themes, it's only because that is how they as people would act. And if they would not act in that way, then that changes how the theme needs to be expressed. Is what I'm saying making sense to you?
Yeah, I'm just letting you say it.
No, no,
Like
right. I'm just like trying to get across this point where it's like nobody nobody is just there for the theme, even though they
right.
are very clearly there for the theme, right? Like,
It's the world is both lived in and mythic. It is
yes,
both that these people are there because they have a reason to be there, and um and was it and there's a thematic reasoning to them. Like one of the problems in Hokum, a movie I described earlier, is that none of the characters really have a theme going except for the main character and his ghost mother, um, probable ghost mother. Characters show up and play roles, and they have a reason to be there, but they're actually not that deep or interesting or connected to the theme. They are doing things in the background and around that is reasonable to them, but actually there's nothing deeper to them. Like they're just there to be a red herring or there to have whatever to go on. Like it's empty. At the same time, you have characters like in some of the Star Wars cartoons where it's like I am the dark side of the Force, and I am the light side of the Force, and we're at war. Why are you on this random planet? I don't know. Why am I here? Something, something, gray side of the Force, something, something. Something, something, dark side, something, 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 complete. That's the whole thing to it. Thematically, they're there. In reality, there's no reason for them to be anywhere there or interacting or whatever. So it's like that's the two halves of it. You can have people who are supposed to be there, but they don't really do anything for the story, or you can have people who are no reason that they're there except that they're there, and they're entirely for the themes of the story. And they're actually kind of bad unless they're carefully managed. And in fact, the best writing is what Anthony is describing.
Yeah. And Raskolnikov, especially, like the great achievement of the novel is the main character, Raskolnikov. So, I'm going to be spoiling Crime and Punishment. It was published in 1866. So, spoiler warning, guys. Uh, Raskolnikov is literally like it. I mentioned this to you in chat, Ben. Like it reminds me of like in the 80s they had those obsessions with like, oh, let's get deep into the twisted mind of a killer. That's exactly what Crime and Punishment is, except that Dostoevsky's not a hack. He is a genuinely brilliant writer. And you realize that like Raskolnikov is such a finely drawn character. It actually takes place over a very short period of time. I want to say like 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 at most, right? The main bulk of the story. And most of it is spent going over like exactly what Raskolnikov is thinking at any given moment. It does leave his point of view every now and then, and you follow other characters. But even then, it's like the reason it is so relatively long, despite it being over such a relatively short length of time. It's a 527-page novel, according to Wikipedia. The reason that it's like that is that Dostoevsky is basically letting you know, like, exactly why Raskolnikov is doing everything he is doing at any given moment, right? Like, why does Raskolnikov make this decision? Why does he make this decision? Why does he make this decision? What is he thinking in this moment, in this moment, in this moment? And the achievement here is Raskolnikov becomes this character who is both loathsome and incredibly sympathetic. I'm not sure if he's either a gamma or an omega, but frankly, I would probably classify him as an omega in the social-sexual hierarchy.
Yeah.
He is a student who is basically like a jobless, unemployed student who's funded by his mother, who is also poor. So it's like a shame that he's getting funded by his mother, right? He's described as being actually kind of a handsome man. And supposedly he was in love with a girl in the past who then became a nun. Which, to be honest, does kind of also signal Omega to me, right? Like, I don't want. I'm genuinely not trying to make a. I'm not trying to make a joke here, and it sounds like I am. It's kind of hard not to make it sound funny, but it's not funny at all in the novel, right? It's just kind of part of Raskolnikov's backstory. But like that, he would end up with someone who would ultimately leave him for no one at all, just go into a nunnery. Like it does kind of push towards the Omega angle, right?
Yeah, like it's so.
And I don't want to turn this into a joke or go like, ha, so like he
I mean,
literally made a woman join now. Like that's not Dostoevsky's
haven't
point.
you
That's
done
not my
that
point.
twice?
What was that?
Haven't you done that twice?
No, once.
Okay,
Uh
so uh,
yeah,
just so
I
people
understand.
you understand. Just so people know, just real quick, alpha, beta, delta, gamma, omega. Alpha, the leaders. Bravos, the betas, the second in commands who aren't quite alphas, aren't quite deltas. Deltas are the workhorses. Most people are deltas in the universe, sort of thing. Gammas are antagonistic to alphas. Tend to be neurotic. Their biggest trait is that they lie to themselves and to others all the time. Omegas are the scum of society in a way. They're often neurotic, or there is some flaw to them that turns them into a bottom person. the sort of person who like this has these issues as described, but also might fall out of society. The hermit is often an omega. The person who lives in a house and doesn't talk to anyone and just kind of watches TV all day is an omega. There we go. Sorry.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, I would probably classify Raskolnikov as an omega for a few reasons. He is at the beginning of the story like an unemployed student and who like basically is gets money from his mom and and at the beginning of the novel he's like feverish, he is ill and you see in his head he has these weird moments where on one hand he thinks he's like superior to the common mass of humanity, and in other moments he becomes like deeply sympathetic towards random people, but then like he realizes, wait a minute, my own philosophy means that the sympathy is wrong and he will like regret being sympathetic. um and you kind of vacillate between these two modes of Raskolnikov where you're like, this is a loathsome individual who clearly needs to be put down like a dog, right? Like, because and then you are, dear God, somebody help this poor man. He is drowning, right? Like, you can't, like, and obviously, both of these things, this is exactly Dostoevsky's point. Both of these reads are correct, right? To isolate one and ignore the other is to miss who Raskolnikov is, right? If you are reading the novel going, well, Raskolnikov is just an irredeemable monster, you are missing Dostoevsky's point. And if you are reading the novel and saying, well, Raskolnikov, I don't really think what he did was that bad. It can be excused based on circumstances. He was in a poor position, right? You are also missing Dostoevsky's point, right? Um, he is both a deeply sympathetic figure who is suffering and a monster, right? And which of these is going to win out is kind of the point of the novel. And there are a few absolutely like scintillatingly brilliant scenes and some genuinely unbelievably good and very subtle character work on the part of Dostoevsky. So his sister is being pursued by three men in the novel. Uh, I'm getting the Russian names right. It's kind of difficult. So I'm looking up the cast list here on Wikipedia right now to get it correct. Uh Raskolnikov, Marmeladov. Yeesh, this is hard. Yeah. Luzhin, Razumikin, and Zvidrigalov. Okay. So yeah, I know. Uh so Luzin is the person who there's a scene at the beginning, and I remember telling this to Ben, but interestingly, I would like to tell you that like it evolved in ways I didn't expect. He gets a letter from his mother going, your sister is getting married to Luzhin, right? And we're very excited about it. He's older and but he is quite well off and he is going to support her and he seems to be very devoted to her. And Raskolnikov reads the letter and immediately goes, ain't no fucking way my sister's marrying this man, right? Like, if they're looking for my blessing, they're not getting it. I know why she's doing it. She's doing it because she thinks that she needs the money and she thinks that she needs to support me, right? Like,
She's not
no.
wrong if that's her reasoning.
Yeah, but he's like, nope. And he's like, I don't accept that. I'm not going to let her marry someone for that reason. And then he meets Luzin. But this is the fascinating thing, and where I was wrong when I read this for the first time, or at least not wrong, but the reveal kind of hadn't happened. Raskolnikov was right. He was completely correct about Luzin. Luzin was a dishonorable man who should not have been marrying his sister, and he was absolutely right about his sister's motivation, and he was absolutely right to tell her not to marry him. Right? And even more than that, the reason that he is dishonorable is that he embodies Raskolnikov's exact philosophy. And Raskolnikov never puts two and two together. Right? He never like connects, like goes, yo, this dude is a Nietzschean Superman type guy. Like, there's a great scene early on where someone goes like, you realize that your philosophy would actually lead to someone discussing murder and being okay with murder. And Luzhin gets very offended. he's like, "How dare you, good sir?" And he's like, and then later he like tries to be like, he says to Sidonia, he's like, "I want an apology from your brother for saying that I would be okay with murder." Like but he clearly took comments I made in jest or is far too seriously and thought I would really mean it. And then they were like, "Yeah, no, get out. We don't buy any of this shit for a second." Right? Like,
Oh, so they kicked him out?
yeah, so she doesn't marry Illusion. The other thing that's weird, by the way, about Crime Punishment is that, weirdly enough, as odd as it sounds, it actually has a happy ending, or as close to a happy ending as you could get, which is very odd,
In
right?
Russia, yes.
Um, it's more not even in Russia. Like as we're joking, I know, but it's not so much in Russia as like in this type of story. You're kind of not like, how are you getting a happy ending out of this? But they do. So the second person who is pursuing Danya, which is Raskolnikov's sister, is Svidrigailov or something. Hold on. I cannot say this name.
Have you tried
Svidrigailov.
Vizcailov for your problems in the bedroom?
Yes. Svidrigailov. Now, Svidrigailov is also like a Nietzschean, but just like Luzhin is sort of like Raskolnikov earlier on the path, right? Like he's not where
Right.
Raskolnikov is yet. Wow, I cannot say this. Svidrigailov
If you have
is
any of these medical problems, such as
yes,
keep going.
Svidrigailov,
Yeah.
Petrovich, Dunya, Razumik. No,
Dropping dead.
Svidrigailov is like Raskolnikov later on the path. He has spent his entire life embodying like the Nietzschean principles, and it turns out that he's just like an incredibly amoral womanizer, right? You
Yes.
know, he is like, you learn that there's this whole thing where like he might have murdered a child. He like is casually telling these stories about how he would give money to women, convince them to marry him, and then he like have mistresses on the side, and he becomes infatuated with Dunya, right? Because Dunya is apparently like a very incredible woman who tends to fascinate a lot of people in the novel, right? Like, she has three different suitors for marriage in the novel. So he becomes infatuated with Dunya, and he figures out that he overhears Raskolnikov confessing the murder to someone. So he now has Raskolnikov over a barrel, right? And he realizes he now has great power. Dunya loves Raskolnikov. She's very devoted to her brother. And he realizes now he basically has blackmail material over them. So the way he uses it is really interesting. After Raskolnikov confronts him, after like he reveals he overheard it, and basically goes like, if you're trying to use this, I think you're going to try and get back together with like Dunya, because apparently Dunya used to be a governess for him years before, and that's how he knew her. So he's like, I think you're going to try and get back together with Dunya. And he's like, I'm not going to let you do it. Like, I'm straight up. If you try and do it, I'm just going to kill you. Like, Raskolnikov tells him this straight on. And he goes, no, 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 I would never do that. And then as soon as Raskolnikov leaves, he like finds Dunya and goes, right. So I'm definitely doing that. And there's a brilliant scene where he like goes, come with me alone. He's like, I have something to tell you. He's like, your brother committed those murders. He's like, well, he goes, I overheard it. I could give you all the details. Like, I know he did it. And he's like, but look, I can send him out of the country. I can help him. All you have to do is marry me. And Dunya says, like, I'm not going to do it. And then he's like, well, hold on here. And then he like locks the door and says, you're alone in this room with me. He's like, I could basically do whatever they want. And I would be very careful of your answer. And she draws a gun on him and fires in his direction. And then he realized, like, so you really would rather like kill me than marry me? And she's like, yes. And he's like, just go, leave. And then he kills himself. It's fascinating, but he kills himself. He then goes to like, there's another character named Sonia who is a prostitute who is actually like by far the most moral character in the novel. She's like the moral center of the novel. She is very in love with Raskolnikov. She and Raskolnikov like knows her family and gave some money of his own to help her family when her father dies. at one point of the book, and she's like a very submissive character, and she basically is forced to prostitute herself to pay for her to like fund her family, right? She has no choice. It's either that or like her two, young brother and sister, her like child brother and sister who are like 5 and 6 years old will starve to death, right? And so Sonia, he like gives Sonia 3,000 rubles or whatever and says like, all right, he goes, and he like goes up to Sonia before he kills him. And it's like, take this money, follow Raskolnikov to Siberia. And she's like, what are you talking? He's like, no, shut up. I know what happened. Don't even try and pretend. Right. I know you're going to follow him. Right. He's like, you can't prostitute yourself there. I don't want you to prostitute yourself there. I don't want you to use this for anything else. I'll help pay for your brother and sister. I'll make sure they're in like a good orphanage, whatever. Right. Like, he's like, follow Raskolnikov. And she's like, thank you. Okay. And then he kills him. And then he goes off on his own and kills himself. So
is that the second suitor to kill himself?
No. This is the same guy. Same guy.
Okay.
So Luzhin is like Raskolnikov earlier on the path. He hasn't yet reached the conclusion that Raskolnikov did, which is, well, murder is okay. Svidrigailov is Raskolnikov later on the path. He has taken it to its logical extreme of, if you're strong enough, you could do what you want. But when he realizes he cannot compel somebody's free choice, and what he really wants is for a woman like Dunya to choose him, he sees no way out of it but the end of a bullet, right? Which is, of course, where Raskolnikov is going to go if he continues on the path he's on. There's also a great scene where there's a brilliant scene, like genuinely brilliant, where the detective character, Porfiry Petrovich, there are a few confrontation scenes with him and Raskolnikov. And the confrontation scenes are basically like him going, I know you did it, but I know that, but I'm going to make you say it, right? Because I don't actually have proof. And it's Raskolnikov getting increasingly angry and going, you think I did it? And I'm going, what? Me? No. Why would I think you did it? Yes, you do. I know you think I did it. Well, I'm not admitting it. I never said you did it. I don't know why you think I would say you did it. It's like, well, I know you think that. That's why you're here. And he's like, it's all in your head, Raskolnikov. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, later, Porfiry meets Raskolnikov, and he says, Raskolnikov, I want to offer you an apology. And it's a genuinely genius scene. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, Nikody confessed. And he's like a minor character who's a painter, right? And he's like, what? He's like, yeah, he confessed. And he goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, as it turns out, he goes, first off, I do want to apologize for one thing. It's like, you were right. I was actually just trying to get you to admit that you did it, right? And he's like, that was low of me. I wish I hadn't done that. And he's like, yeah, I owe you an apology for that, because it turns out this painter confessed. He says he did it. And then Raskolnikov goes, wait, so you're apologizing for it? He goes, yeah. He goes, of course, it's all nonsense. And he goes, what do you mean it's all nonsense? He's like, he obviously didn't do it. Like, he goes, nothing about the psychology of it makes any sense. This was clearly someone who, who hid them, who took the money, who hid it, and then he goes through exactly what Raskolnikov did. And he goes, it clearly wasn't Nikody. And then he goes, then who was it? And then Porfiry looks at him and goes, come on, Raskolnikov. Like, who are we kidding here? It was you. You did it. And he's like, can we please just stop the game for a moment? And he's like, what? He's like, look, who are you? He's like, come on, man. I know you did it. It's
amazing.
And he's like, wait, you just told me that he confessed. He's like, well, yeah, he confessed. He goes, I'm apologizing for not being direct with you earlier. Like, he's like, I'm going to need to arrest you. Like, this. He's like, look, Raskolnikov, I'm not going to lie to you. I genuinely like you. I don't want to do. He's like, make this easy on yourself. Just confess. He's like, I swear on my honor, I'll tell you that that you got this guy off who gave a false confession, that you were sick at the time of the crime. You'll get out young. You'll do well for yourself, And then he's like, well, no. Well, what if I don't confess? You don't have any proof. He's like, yeah, you're right. That's true. I don't have any proof yet. He's like, I mean, I'm still going to need to arrest you, though, obviously. Right? Like, of course I
Yeah.
am. He's like, but he goes, I'll get the proof eventually, And then he says this one, he goes, all right. He's like, whatever. If you want to, he goes, I'll arrest you in a couple days. And he goes, how do you know I won't run? And then he thinks for him and goes, oh no, you definitely won't run. And he's like, what do you mean you won't run? He's like, I could tell your personality type. That would be way too cowardly for you. You're not going to run. He's like, you think you're too superior to run. There's no way. He's like, he's like, I'll arrest you in a couple days if you don't turn yourself in. He's like, just so you know. And he goes, oh, one last thing. He says, and I almost hate to mention, he goes, I don't think you're going to do this. He's like, I really, really don't. He goes, but if you kill yourself, can you please, as a favor to me, leave a note telling me where you hid the money so that I can find it later? He's like, but, he's like, I doubt this will be a problem, but just in case. He goes, anyway, see you later. And he just walks out. It's a great scene.
It's a great scene.
Yeah, I actually want to find it because the moment where he's like, "Come on, Raskolnikov, isn't it obvious? You did that." He's like, we know you killed him. Like, who are we kidding here, man? Like, who do you think I am?" It's great, but yeah, like Raskolnikov does eventually confess. He takes full responsibility. They said his defense team was kind of frustrated because anytime they try and like make excuses for him, Raskolnikov's like, nope. I was in my right mind. I wanted to do it. I did it because I wanted money and because I thought she would be an easy kill, and it went wrong. And they're actually like frustrated by it. They said, but believe it or not, this actually kind of helped him because he was clearly not like hiding responsibility. He was taking full responsibility for it. And also they said, and he was feverish when he did it, and he did in fact turn himself in when somebody else was ready to take the fall. So he ends up only getting 8 years in Siberia, and Sonia travels down with him. And then the novel ends. What was that?
Oh,
yeah. And then the novel ends at this very interesting point. He's been in Siberia for 1 year, and Sonia goes out to meet him. She's like been coming and visiting him all the time, right? And she can't come for a couple days because she gets a cold, and then like she's recovering for a bit, and she meets Raskolnikov, and Raskolnikov is still like in his head making excuses for himself, even though he doesn't in front of the judge. Now, while he's in Siberia, he's like, my only problem was weakness. The only reason I'm here is because I was weak. If I wasn't weak, I wouldn't be here. So, that's the real reason I'm here. But then he sees Sonia, and it ends with him dropping to his knees in front of her and crying. And it ends with Dostoevsky saying this. She had been, yeah. He did not open it now, but one thought passed through his mind. At first he was afraid that she would worry him about religion, would talk about the gospel, and pester him with books. But to his great surprise, she had not once approached the subject and not even offered him the Testament. He had asked her for it himself not long before his illness, and she brought him the book without a word. Till now he had not opened it. He had not opened it now, but one thought passed through his mind. Can her convictions not be mine now, her feelings, her aspirations at least? She, too, had been greatly agitated that day, and at night she was taken ill again. But she was so happy, and so unexpectedly happy, that she was almost frightened of her happiness. 7 years, only 7 years. At the beginning of their happiness, at some moments, they were both ready to look on those 7 years as though they were 7 days. He did not know that the new life would not be given him for nothing, that he would have to pay dearly for it, that it would cost him great striving, great suffering. But that is the beginning of a new story. The story of the gradual renewal of a man, the story of his gradual regeneration, of his passing from one world into another, of his initiation to a new unknown life. That might be the subject of a new story, but our present story is ended. The end. It's a fascinating ending to me because it's called Crime and Punishment, but it ends literally with Dostoevsky telling us that the punishment is still ongoing. Right? He has 7 years of punishment left, and that's where Dostoevsky ends the story.
It's a good ending.
It is a good ending. It's a very moving ending, and his point is that this is the moment where like it's not that Raskolnikov has been redeemed. It's that Raskolnikov can now be redeemed.
Right. It's about the hard action that's happening. Like Raskolnikov fundamentally still has all his issues, but he can become something better through the punishment.
Yes, exactly. It's this moment
Literally
where it's
me.
like, go ahead.
Sorry, no. The joke is every time you describe Raskolnikov, I'm like, I go, it's literally me. It's more than a meme. I need to read it myself.
There's a lot of literally me in Raskolnikov. Like, the thing about him, the other reason I understand that the Gamma is the person who is perpetually lying to themselves, which could lead a little bit to Raskolnikov, because obviously he's doing that. But it strikes me as like, I'm trying to think of how to put it. Raskolnikov is the sort of person who I'm trying to think of exactly how to put this. If you go through the timeline of his life, it seems as if he became destitute. Like, he gave up on his schooling and gave up on his life first, and then adopted his Nietzscheanism, right?
Yes.
Now, he wrote one of the big things in the book is that he wrote an article called On Crime, which is where he espouses his philosophy, his like Nietzschean philosophy, and it actually got published. And in fact, Raskolnikov is quite surprised to see it got published, because he like submitted it for publication and then forgot about it, and like he didn't realize that they had actually published it. Uh, so a few people are like, "Oh yeah, I read that article," and of course, it's actually really bad for him, because like it gives a very obvious motive for the murder. Uh,
Yeah.
but he had no idea they had actually been published. So like, it appears though, even when he was writing that, it was like later in his university career, right? When it was clear that he was not doing a very good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like Sonia, or not Sonia, his sister Dunya. Dunya ends up like, of the three suitors, one of the one she ends up with is the one good one, right?
Of course.
Who is his friend Razumihin, who is also, this is important, he's like a mirror to Raskolnikov. He is also an unemployed student, but unlike Raskolnikov, he's like actually an honorable man. He's not a Nietzschean. Like, he
Right.
stopped going to class just like Raskolnikov did, but that's because he was like more of like a bohemian starving artist type, right? And
Yeah.
then when he marries Dunya, it actually says the end, like, because he knew he needed to be more responsible, he started going back to classes and, continuing his learning, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't not doing it because, oh, he was failing out and panicked, then constructed this theory to, you know, create his own, to recreate his sense of superiority, right?
Right.
Um,
I'm sorry.
but it's more like Razumihin was just kind of a bohemian starving artist, right? And then when the opportunity came where he realized he couldn't do that anymore, he stopped and became responsible, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he's the one that kind of everybody in the novel wants him to end up with Dunya. The only really bad ending that any of like the sympathetic characters get is Raskolnikov's poor mother, who like basically goes insane and and dies with them. They don't tell her that Raskolnikov committed the murder, and it's implied that when she dies that she knew more about it than she had let on, but she basically just like lost her mind and was like, my son's gonna be a great writer one day. Like, look, he published this article, and she just dies while Raskolnikov is in Siberia. Uh,
Aw.
so she doesn't get a very good ending, though. Even that, people have like, as I'm looking at some of the discussion, people have pointed that out, that even that's a bit of probably the best ending she could get, because she never fully knows what Raskolnikov did. She just knows more than they think she did. So she dies without knowing that her son was a murderer,
Yeah.
right? So it's still, though, even though people are like, oh, that's a little bit of a mercy, but it's hard pressed for me to be like, no, that's not a very good ending.
No.
She
It,
doesn't
it
come to a good end.
she died of a broken heart. Like,
Yeah.
her
But Dunya does. Dunya
yeah.
comes to a pretty good ending because she marries the one suitor who's good for her. And Raskolnikov, of all people, comes to a good ending because he reaches the point where repentance is possible, and he has a woman who's waiting there for him who is willing to
overlook his
stay with him
murders
through the work. So that's
and his
right.
personality problems. His many personality problems.
Yes. By the way, just for all of you, in case you're all not insecure enough, Raskolnikov does better with women than you do. A literal murderer uh does better, and not one of the cool murderers either. He just marries an old woman with an axe. And he is better with women than you are. Uh so just remember that if you're ever not feeling too good about yourself. I want to find that scene. Unfortunately, my Kindle edition is incredibly badly organized, and instead of putting all of the chapters into separate sections of the ebook, it just puts the book into one big chapter, which is
Amazing.
retarded because there are, in fact, chapters. But yeah, there's some really, really great scenes in this. Every scene with Porfiry is great. Who's the detective who's interviewing Raskolnikov, as Raskolnikov is just like furiously going like, "Well, I didn't kill him, okay?" And he's like, I didn't say you killed him. Well, I didn't do it." And he's like, "Yeah, I know. I never said you did it. You're just trying to disarm me to make me admit I did it. Well, I'm not going to do it." "Oh, I could see why you'd think that. I understand, but that's definitely not what I'm doing. Don't you worry." "Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Just stop it. Stop saying I killed him. I never said you killed him." And then later he just comes over, is like, "I'd like to apologize. It's absolutely what I was doing. You were completely right."
I
Um,
thought you were psychotic enough just to confess if I gave you a little bit of pressure.
and to be honest, I was mostly correct. But oh man, I actually really want to find that scene, but because the book is not organized into chapters, maybe ChatGPT can tell me what percent of the book it's in. What percentage of the way through Crime and Punishment is the second interview with Porfiry? Yeah, nah, nah, nah. Yes, Svidrigalov's scenes are also all excellent. Uh, and there's one extremely. I actually think that all of Sonia's scenes are great because there's when Raskolnikov, she's the one who Raskolnikov tells first that he killed the people because he trusts Sonia. Uh, Part 4, Chapter 5. Okay, man, it sure would be easy to find if my book actually fucking had chapter divisions. Crime and Punishment, Part 4, Chapter 5. Mm-hmm. Oh, nope. Not that one. The one.
You know what? It's fine. Don't worry about it.
This is important, Ben. I actually genuinely want to find this. It's frustrating me. Mostly just because it's frustrating me. And my fucking book is driving me nuts. Oh, hey, I found it. There we go. Cool. All right, good. I want to find the line because it's just so good. Da, 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 da. Na, 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 na. Yeah, here it is. So he said, It wasn't enough for him to suffer agony behind the door where they battered at the door and rung the bell. No, he had to go to the empty lodging, half delirious, to recall the bell ringing. He wanted to. This is Porphyry talking and describing the crime and describing what Raskolnikov did afterward. He wanted to feel the cold shiver over again. Well, that we grant was through illness, but consider this: he is a murderer, but looks upon himself as an honest man, despises others, poses as injured innocence. No, that's not the work of a Nikolai, my dear Rodion Rodmanovich. All that had been said before had sounded so like a recantation that these words were too great a shock. So, in other words, he has just been going on about how Nikolai is the killer, and he went, obviously, that's not true, right? And now Raskolnikov is like, wait, what? Raskolnikov shuddered as though he had been stabbed. Then, who then is the murderer? He asked in a breathless voice, unable to restrain himself. Porfiry Petrovitch sank back in his chair as though he were amazed at the question. Who is the murderer? He repeated, as though unable to believe his ears. Why, you, Rodion Romanovich. You are the murderer, he added, almost in a whisper, in a voice of genuine conviction. Raskolnikov leapt from the sofa. His face twitched convulsively. Your lip is twitching just as it did before, Porfiry Petrovitch observed almost sympathetically. You've been misunderstanding me, I think, Rodion Romanovich. That's why you are so surprised. I came on purpose to tell you everything and deal openly with you. It was not I who murdered her, Raskolnikov whispered. No, it was you Rodion Romanovich, and no one else. And then he goes like, you're at your old tricks again, your old method. I wonder you don't get sick of it. Oh, stop that. What does that matter now? It would be a different matter if there were witnesses present, but we are whispering alone. You see yourself that I have not come to chase and capture you like a hare. Whether you confess it or not is nothing to me now. For myself, I am convinced about it. He's like, well, then why? Why did you come? Oh, that's your question. In the first place, to arrest you so directly is not my interest. And he's like, well, how, if you're so convinced? Ah, what if I'm convinced? That's only my dream for the time. Why should I put you in safety? You know that's it, since you asked me to do it. If I confront you with that workman, for instance, and you say to him, were you drunk or not? Who saw me with you? I simply took you to be drunk, and you were drunk too. Well, what could I answer? Especially as your story is a more likely one than his. So basically, he's going like, "Look, I know that it's not going to hold up in court, but like, let please just drop the act. I know you know, and I know that you did it, right? And I'm going to need to arrest you eventually. I'm just telling you this. I'm dealing openly with you for once. Uh, it's great. Porfiry is one of the best characters. He's also a really good example. Let me try and think of how to put this. Of a he disproves Romanovich's great man theory of history, right? Because Porfiry is a great man, genuinely intelligent, right? Genuinely more intelligent than Romanovich, uh, genuinely a better person than Romanovich. But instead of using his greatness to persecute him, he's genuinely looking out for Romanovich's good, right? Like, or Raskolnikov, sorry, not Romanovich, Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov's
Right.
good, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the point of the character, that he is the superior version of his great man theory of history, right?
Yes.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying this. I really like Crime and Punishment. I'm gonna try and move on to War and Peace. We'll see how it goes. We
Very
shall
good.
see how it goes. Any thoughts yourself? What are you reading?
Uh, let's see. Right now, I am not reading anything directly.
No.
Yes, I am finishing some things casually. So I am reading through sufficient for. Oh, my goodness, it's a book about the sufficiency of Scripture for the Christian life. I am reading off and on two things: Shagduk, which is something we'll talk about later. I think we had the author on sometime in the past, and Pilgrim's Progress. Much of my efforts have been pushing towards things like one, finding a job; two, which I have got, thank God, 2, my education towards biblical counseling, and 3, uh, being Raskolnikov, whatever his name is, um, by nervously pacing my room and switching between Nietzschean self glory and believing I am a worthless bug, and considering murdering people for their money because they deserve it. The average sensitive young man experience. Um, no, I'm not actually like that. But the general rule is basically wasting time. And I'm stopping that. I'm putting to it. Somebody's like, wait, you took a second job and you, because I bounced and I've got this other job now. And, you're also going to school. And it's like, don't worry about it. Workaholism runs in the family. Like it's the work is never the problem, it's the mindset. And I prefer a self dialogue that is both manic and depressive at the same time. Normally, people take turns, but me, special, different, better. Get over it. There we
Nice.
go. That's what I'm doing. The next
That's
book
fair.
I do when I'm more stable. The book I'm planning to read though is Celine. This is a recommendation from Bronze Age pervert to the general public. Um, and this is Celine's journey to the end of the night. It's about a gentleman who has a lot of adventures. Um, Celine is interesting because he's rarely the obvious set in the obvious greats, like say Dostoevsky or Tolstoy. However, he comes up in that second tier, which interests me greatly. Um, some other things I'm doing is when I'm not like able to read or do other things or doom scroll or a thousand other little things. I am listening to E.R. Eddings' The Worm Ouroboros, which is also of that second class, but in genre fiction,
Yes.
which I enjoy immensely. A lot of big characters. I am eyeing up my Castalia House Library Edition of War and Peace, but at the same time, it's big. It's the second biggest set in that collection, next to the Plutarch's Lives, which I have read. Um, have you read
I'm
Plutarch's Right?
genuinely looking forward to reading War and Peace. Just like, I don't know, something about it
Excuse
just
me.
seems like War and Peace hits different. You know,
Yeah, I get
it,
you.
just something in the reputation of it. And I also, just to be honest with you, kind of like Crime and Punishment, I admire the balls
Yeah,
it takes to be like, what is your book about? War and peace. Didn't you just like describe everything? Yes.
yes.
Just like
It's
crime
about
and punishment. Like,
everything.
what's it about? It's about crime and punishment. Yeah. And then Tolstoy looked at that and said, no, that's too limited. I need to go bigger. War and peace.
And
So
then
it's like,
it's like people are celebrating. He's got like really cool sunshades on. Like, oh, it's Tolstoy. He's got War and Peace. Oh, oh,
incredible.
look at
Um,
him, the legend, the goat.
yeah, I've heard I don't know. Some people say Anna Karenina's the better book, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Hearing about what Anna Karenina is about, it sounds as dull as fucking dishwater.
Yeah, there
Um,
was in the
I'm
parody
probably
of
being unfair, and I'm sure I am. I'm not saying that it actually is that dull. I couldn't tell you since I'm not reading it, but it sounds dull.
yeah,
War and Peace, for all of whatever you could say about it, it doesn't sound dull.
right.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where actually these stories are so expansive that it's hard to actively describe them. Going Crime and Punishment is about a young man who murders old woman, miser woman, for her money and then goes crazy is not accurate at all. It's accurate in the details,
It's
but
completely accurate and
it's
also entirely inaccurate.
exactly. It's how many suicides can they cram into a Russian novel? We'll find out. There is a weirdly high amount of them. Um, Sometimes I read that from older authors, and the suicide rate couldn't have been that high. But also, like, I wonder if they just didn't have the confidence of having characters never show up again. Like, if they didn't kill themselves, people would bitch.
No, I would say Svidric. Wow, S.
Right.
Uh, I would say that his suicide is very well earned and has a very real point to it.
Okay.
Um, it has a very real point. I do think the scene where Porphyry goes, "Oh, I don't think you're gonna do this," and I really I genuinely hope you don't. But if you kill yourself, can you please just leave a note telling me where you hid the money? Because that would make my life so much easier as a favor. Anyway, see you later. And he just walks away. He's like, look, don't get me wrong. I don't want you to do it. I don't think you're gonna do it. But if you do it,
But
he's like, just as a favor to me, just leave the solution to the crime, please.
oh,
Yeah,
amazing.
Svidrigailov is actually a very interesting character because it's like he is kind of pure id, right?
Hmm.
Pure untamed like hedonism, and yet the final thing that he does is actually a genuinely good deed, right? Like
Yes.
motivated by nothing but the desire to do a good deed, by his admiration of people who he knows are better than himself, right?
Yes.
And women no less, which is kind of the point. If you wanted to be insufferable, you could call it a sort of critique of toxic masculinity. Not that I would ever do such a thing, right?
I simply don't believe that toxic masculinity doesn't exist, and you're crazy to think that.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I don't know where these thoughts come from.
Yeah. But really, though, like it's genuinely important thematically in the novel that the people who he admires as being so much better than himself are women. When
Mm-hmm.
throughout the story, he is constantly using his wealth and good looks and general lack of morals to take advantage of women with absolutely no regards as to their well being in any way. And Raskolnikov immediately clocks this about him, and you hear him tell stories about like his past, and it's just like, yeah, I had this wife, and I basically manipulated her into marrying me because I could tell she was into me, but then I had mistresses on the side, and I made it. And I eventually managed to work out a contract where she was just okay with me having mistresses. I mean, she didn't like it, but like it worked out eventually. He's like, and anyway, there's a 16-year-old girl who's engaged to me, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, yeah, and I got her totally devoted to me by just throwing a ton of money at her parents, and now she thinks she has no choice but to marry me. And Raskolnikov is like, that's like hideously evil, and he's like, maybe, just like I don't know, don't care. She's into me. Um,
Listen, you don't have that Sigma grind set, you Omega. This is the Sigma grind. I'm
He is.
Patrick
I
Bateman.
think Vox
You
might have
won't.
even talked about him once. If I'm thinking of the right guy, like
Yeah.
I think Vox mentioned as like Donya rejecting him was one of the rare instances of Dostoevsky putting a little bit of wish fulfillment into the story.
Mm,
Uh, that like in real life, when even though he knew such people like this, they had not. Though he might have been referring. I can't remember if Vox was talking about him or a Tolstoy character who was similarly immoral.
well, so here's the thing. Like, while the sociosexual hierarchy is correct in its general application, fundamentally, people are still free agents and can make decisions. And while most women, especially women these days, evil women, uh, are not really able to maintain themselves in a moral, or shall we say, backbone fashion. They don't fight against the hive mind. They don't fight against, these things. Women can say no and do. And I'm saying this because, I see it as a bouncer, but also because women do have a moral character that is independent of men. Like it's like they do have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, but as much as men do. But it's like there is still, like, I haven't read the story, so I might be just talking out of my ass. But um, women do say no to alphas and sigmas, and just don't do it. And you might say, well, there might be a mechanical reason for it. Well, being an alpha or a sigma is not a guarantee of being liked. And I know that Vox Day knows this, by the way. This isn't a criticism of him. This is more of a to the autistic spurgs who study this too much, who think too much of this, or think Chad always gets the girl. Like, there's a reason why, you know, people don't take the complaint that, Stacy snubbed Chad. She'd never do that. People don't really take those complaints as seriously as you might think. I have seen with my own eyes, alpha looking men, alpha presenting men get rejected in the actual PUA stuff. Uh, Basically, they're like, yeah, you're going to do this, and then it's the numbers game. You are going to approach 50 women in a night, and one of them might sleep with you. You know, Men like Roosh, before they repented, basically said, I had to go to the places where women are looking to sleep with men, and then I approached 20 women in the women sleep with men club, and I struck out some nights. So there's clearly more mechanics than, being handsome and rich. Uh, and well spoken. Like Raskolnikov's daughter has, sorry, not daughter, sister has, like, clearly a certain amount of bad choice and character of men, but she has values, like, supporting her waste of flesh brother.
I actually would say that that's
Mm,
not really how I suppose with Lucian a little bit, but you have to remember that one of the reasons that she is probably even consider first off, she's considering marrying Lucian because she knows that he'll be able to like give them money and their family needs the money.
mm,
And but it's also like remember, he's kind of similar to Raskolnikov, right?
mm-hmm,
Who she loves. She actually is never interested in Svidrigailov, right? Wow, fucking whatever. Svidrigailov is interested in her, right? She's not interested in him and never is. Uh, he becomes obsessed, or at least like kind of obsessed with this idea of she's this woman that he wants to get her to choose him. He could get any woman she wants, and Dunya is this extraordinary woman, right? But she won't choose him. And this
mm,
is the thing that kind of breaks him. By the way, I found the post by Vox as I looked it up. It's called The Bad Sigma, and it's a Tolstoy character, not a Dostoevsky character. So it's not. I was
mm-hmm.
thinking it might be Svidrigailov, but no. Who does strike me as a Sigma, by the way, but though I could be wrong. He might be alpha. I don't know. I didn't think of it very much. But anyway, for the record, this is what Vox said. Korrigan, the Tolstoy character, is based on a real man who successfully seduced the younger sister of Tolstoy's wife, who was the model for the character of Natasha. In the novel, the seduction is successfully fended off by the fictional Sonia, which appears to be a rare example of Tolstoy indulging himself in wish fulfillment in history as he wishes it to have been rather than as it actually was. Uh, I don't know. Make of that what you will.
Fair enough. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, even the great author might put a little wish fulfillment as a treat. But fundamentally, like, I never really view it as like a surefire bet. In the writing of it, because it's like, the question for me is always, are women agents or not. And if she's choosing what's his name for money, that is itself an agency choice. That's not, a guarantee of anything other than he has to give her money, for the relationship and so on and so forth. I don't know. Like, to me, it's not as big of a thing because it feels like, I don't know. You know what? I should just read the book.
You really should. Of course, that's Tolstoy's War and Peace. That's not Dostoevsky, but also interesting. I'm looking through Dostoevsky's body of work, and he had went to Siberia for years. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
related to gambling debts, and his the way he portrays Siberia is so interesting in his work because in both Crime and Punishment and an earlier work called The House of the Dead, which is considered by a few people, including Tolstoy and Wittgenstein and Vladimir Lenin, which is again, make
Wild.
of that what you will. Dostoevsky's best work. But anyway, in House of the Dead and in Crime and Punishment, he is like has this weird attitude for Siberia where on the one hand he thinks it's a terrible thing and a blight on Russia, but also the people who enter Siberia seem to come out of it in a much better place than when they entered it. So
I
I'm
believe
like,
it.
I don't know what to make of this, where it's like, it seems to me like, according to you, Siberia is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing.
Well, it's like an abandonment of everything of the world that broke them, or corrupted them, or whatever you want to
Exactly.
say.
Like Dostoevsky himself describes it that way. Like he came out of Siberia like spiritually reawakened, and that's what happens to Raskolnikov, and that's what happens to the narrator of the House of the Dead. And it's
Mm.
like, okay, if this keeps happening in Siberia, then in what way is Siberia a failure? Like I'm missing something here.
Well,
The fact that
failure
it's
leads you to
unpleasant is not a
Siberia.
failure. What was that?
Failure leads you to Siberia,
It does,
and
right.
then it can break you or it can remake you. Like it's like for every one person it remade, it probably killed seven. You know.
That's true. That's probably Dostoevsky's point that like this is not a workable system,
Mm.
right? Like even though it might certain people might come out of the crucible better for it, the crucible is not a system that is designed to make better people. It simply happens to work out that way sometimes. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
it does. And it's kind of something you do have to do to remake yourself. Like it's for the journey I'm on, I have to give up the hours of pleasure, the different spiritual wastes of space I have to do. I have to go through a spiritual Siberia. Most of the great men and things like Plutarch's Lives went through a Siberia. Timoleon, who we featured on this show, who I like the look of, killed his brother and then he lived in the hinterlands of Corinth for years. Um, some like Caesar didn't really do it, but even then, he still had to live through the Sulla's reign. Um, Other people like Diocletian and Aurelian and Constantine lived through the end of or most of the crisis of the third century. Charlemagne came out of warring states. The Spanish Empire came out of the Reconquista. Uh, it's one of those things where hardship does make us better people, better men, especially. And I think it's recommended that everyone nearly starve to death and freeze to death in Siberia at least once in their lives. Like, can God use you if you hold on to sin like a coal, keeping you warm at night? The answer is no, not to the extent he would want.
Yep. Yeah, so I think Crime and Punishment was a genuine it's a profound book. I think it's a brilliant book. Uh I very much enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to War and Peace, very much so. To be honest, from I've even tried to look up what it's about, and frankly, nobody seems to really know.
War
Uh, it's
and
like, what's it
peace.
about? Well, yeah, a series of aristocratic families who are just vibing in Russia when Napoleon invades. That just
Classic.
seems to be the general plot.
Napoleon is like a great villain. They treat him like Hitler, except without the Jewish interference, I guess.
Napoleon's fantastic. He's truly one of the main characters of history, and
Yep.
what makes Napoleon so fun is that he absolutely knew it.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
great. Like every like 500 years or so, you'll get a character like that. Alexander, Caesar, Charlemagne.
we're waiting for the next one.
We're waiting
I
for the
mean,
next one.
I guess to be honest with you, like there was a next one in the 20th century, but nobody's gonna like it because it
Say it.
starts with an H
Say it.
and it ends with Nitler. just I'm just saying. He was
Yes,
probably that guy for the
it
20th
was it.
century.
The main character of history was for the 20th century was probably Hitler. Let's just rip that band-aid off right now, guys. We had our super great man, and it was Hitler. And if it wasn't Hitler, it was Henry Kissinger. Also a terrible, terrible choice, but one with slightly less expansive genocides. Still had
Oh,
genocides,
just
but
not as
less.
many.
Just
Um,
not as
okay,
much.
so I actually do agree with
It could have
Vox.
also
I
been
think Vox
Stalin.
Day's opinion on Hitler is roughly correct, which is like you admire Hitler. Hitler was a retard who had Germany burnt to the ground.
Yes.
Like whatever you want to say about he did like so many good things, like no he fucking didn't. By
Nope.
the end of his reign in Germany was in an objectively worse position than when he took power.
Yep.
Like, and you could say, oh, he would have been a great man if he had stopped at X, Y, or Z point, which is all very interesting, except he didn't.
He wouldn't be Hitler if he did.
Right. Like, he didn't stop. So
Yeah.
say what you will about it. Napoleon, I think it's just I'll also say I find Napoleon to be way more entertaining and way more
Yes.
way and frankly just way greater in every way. Look, I'm sorry. You could say what you want about Napoleon, make any argument you want. The 100 Days is pure cinema.
It is
It's so good. Everything
pure
about it.
cinema.
The moment when he comes up to Marshal Ney's army and and then auras them into serving him and then marches into France, like they go, all right, we need to stop this guy. We're gonna do everything we can. We're gonna send in a full army led by our most loyal, most brilliant general to take him down. And through the power of sheer aura, he just marches back with the army.
He
It's
just
great.
shows up, plays a Sigma edit so candy, the army just submits.
Yeah. Well, no, the real story, like it's in the
Yeah, I
movie
remember.
Waterloo, and
Yeah.
it's like it's exactly correct. Waterloo just like basically transcribes the real meeting one for one because it's
Yeah.
already so cinematic.
Uh,
It's like he tries to talk Marshal Ney into going like, "Hey, you really should follow me," and Ney is like, "No." So finally, he just turns to the men and says, "Gentlemen, your emperor is here." He's like, "If you'll have me," and then they all lay down their weapons and go, "Hail Napoleon!" Great, it's so good.
he is.
Uh,
It's
it's
great.
even like when I looked up Waterloo, I was always under the impression that Waterloo wasn't a very close battle. That like for some reason, I don't know why. Oh no.
This guy. This mad
It's
lad.
back. Sorry, let me finish my thought and then we can end the show.
Okay.
I always had the impression, just kind of like Zama, which I also had this impression I was also wrong about. I had the impression it wasn't a very close battle. In reality, it was actually a very close battle, and the reason that it seemed not close is because Wellington prepared and Grouchy, to be fair,
Mm.
prepared that battle brilliantly.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
that
yeah.
they basically had like they basically knew everything Napoleon was going to do in advance. And even through all of that, there was a point in the battle where Napoleon was convinced that he had won.
Yeah.
Like he was like, that's it, I've done it. But then Grouchy and his men show up, which again, to be fair to Waterloo, like he had to Wellington, he had absolutely prepared in advance, was always absolutely part of the plan. Uh
Mm.
and it was like all he basically predicted everything that Napoleon was going to do in advance, right? Just like
Yeah.
the Battle of Zama, I always had this impression that like, oh, Hannibal never really stood a chance. He did. He actually was defeated through a Hannibal-esque maneuver by Marcus Scipio, who like used a trick to finally win the battle at the final moment by holding back with his cavalry until the last moment or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. Great. Love Napoleon. Uh, Granted, my
Yeah.
probably my favorite historical figure ever is Alexander. Because every Alexander story is better than the last, and they're all real.
Yeah.
And it's
He's such
also
a he's a baller. Like that's it. Like it's one of those things where it's
my all-time
it's
favorite
just
is when
oh my goodness.
yeah, my all-time favorite is when Darius offers him half of his empire, and Alexander brings all of his men together and says, "This is like a very legitimate offer. We should consider this. What would you do?" And one of his generals says, "If I were Alexander, I would take the offer." And Alexander turns to him and says, "And that is why you are not Alexander." And,
It's just a trick question.
which, by the way, what a dick move. Number
Yeah.
one, but also like
Yeah.
why did you ask then, really?
Yep.
But I
He,
also love Alexander because unlike the vet, and Napoleon also has this, by the way. Unlike most people who win, like when you see these like great battles, and you're like, oh, an outnumbered force won.
yeah.
Most of the time, it is a defending force who is
Hmm.
fighting against an attacking force. Not Alexander. He would go into foreign territory with a smaller army and win.
Right.
And you see this with like only the legendary generals of history. Hannibal could do this, Julius Caesar could do this,
Yep.
Alexander could do this, and Napoleon could do this.
Yep.
And that's kind of it.
George Washington.
No, I disagree. Washington couldn't do
Really?
it. He kept losing. There's a
He
very
did.
big difference.
He did lose a
Uh,
few battles. Yeah.
Washington was a great strategist and a terrible tactician.
Okay, so here's the question. Of that era, who's the main character of history?
Ooh, man. Well,
Is
I
it George
mean,
Washington?
no, it's Napoleon.
Oh shit, yeah,
Napoleon's
you're
like
right.
right after Washington.
So what's funny is that it's 1776 through like 1799, right? So it's within like 50 years, 20, 30 years, etc. And then it's like, but actually these are all things that are happening at the same time. Uh
Right. Like I understand that technically Napoleon hasn't really arisen yet, but
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's the same era of history. Like let's be
He's too
honest.
much of a black hole. Like really, it's like who's the main character of like the 1700s, and who knows about that? Probably a pirate, unironically. Of course, the main character before that was Hernan Cortez or
Yes.
Christopher. You know,
Hernan Cortez is similar. He has that same personality type. He's also Hernan Cortez is underrated, and we've had a show on him already, so I
yeah,
won't go on him forever. But he's very underrated. Like, again, a lot of people treat this is the thing about my criteria when I look at great men of history is that there needs to be a sense that if it were not them, the thing would have failed, right?
yes,
You need to have you need to have a real sense of it could only have been this person who accomplished this thing, right?
yep,
And Cortez very much hits this because there's literally this thing where like he leaves the army, he leaves the Spaniards, things go to shit. He returns and they miraculously start winning again.
yeah,
Right? Like it is absolutely Cortez driving everything. Same with Napoleon. Nobody else could have done what Napoleon did with the resources he had. Uh Yi Sun-sin, the admiral who we've done a show on before, right? The Korean admiral. Another great example. They remove him from command, and then promptly the Korean Navy loses almost all of its ships. They panic and put him back in command, and then he has like a 13 versus 100 ship victory, like that, where he basically single-handedly wins the war for the Koreans.
Yep.
Oh man, I love Yi Sun-sin too.
All right,
Just the cinema. I know we're gonna end it, but the cinema of Yi Sun-sin dying in his final battle that also happens to be the final battle of the war. It's so good. It's so good. All right.
All right. Thank you for joining me for 3 hours. Next week I'm going to figure out either a guest or we'll talk some more variety. Honestly, there doesn't seem to be much happening this week or the last couple weeks, which is why
you're all boring.
You're all
Do
boring.
Something fun.
Even the Kursova thing, you know, we'll figure out what industrial noise is, then we'll get back to them. Actually, I enjoy industrial noise. There was a band I like called Blame, though I guess maybe